I'm broadly unconvinced by the common notion that like a superintelligence would be able to exploit some vulnerability in human psychology. First, primarily just because we don't have. I think maybe this is a failing of humanity that's helping it in this case, but we don't really have sufficient models of human psychology to do this, and an artificial intelligence would necessarily have to rely on human data about such things. Like the fact that no human has sufficiently even gotten close to the kind of manipulation that is implied that a superintelligence can pull off should be.
I mean, I
I
think it's
think.
also interesting how Meta, which is like
Mhm,
this company where they, I mean, you said that there's no psychological data, not enough psychological data,
mhm,
which I mean, to bring a counter example of that is kind of like Meta, where or like YouTube, where they have this recommendation system about. I mean, it's a very narrow kind of data set, but they have a lot of data on like how are people reacting to different, you know, types of information. Um, and maybe that doesn't like they don't have data about the kind of the strategic data or strategic kind of combination, but you could imagine like if something becomes super intelligent and then it has all this, you know, psychological data about the person, about how they kind of operate, how they react to different stimuli, how they even if they just have the data of how long people spend on a given topic, you know,
mhm,
maybe they can maybe just like how with the LLMs, it's because it has so much data about the words and like what words come next. It has this
mhm,
emergent property of being able to uh you know generate all these sequences that it hasn't seen before, and like some people would claim that it has knowledge just by
mhm.
predicting the next word, plus the reinforcement learning, plus plus the recursive chain of thought. But it's I think the point is that they're uh emergent properties we see in the LLMs themselves already. But I wonder if for the psychology thing, like if that I mean it's a very scary thing, because in that case, I mean, with what Meta's doing is really like they're using um they're instead of having users input to the AI is the input to the users. um
Mhm.
which is like already a scary thing. And like Meta is one of the first like companies that really says they're going after super intelligence, which is also another, I mean, a scary thing. But I think like I wonder if that data would be enough to have these emergent understanding of human psychology that humans don't even have. If
Mhm.
it, I mean, I guess the data also has to be labeled well enough, because um, I mean that's kind of why they hired this guy Alexander Wang, I think,
Mhm.
because he owned Scale AI, which was like a data labeling um AI company, and then like people are wondering why did Meta take this had him as this head of AI research or something, like ahead of like all these senior researchers. Maybe it's because they're really trying to make sense of like really trying to label all this data that they have about human interaction, so that it can learn these emergent psychological properties. But I mean that's
Mhm.
just one. I mean, I'm just trying to think of that counter example, but also who knows whether I mean if Meta is trying to create the super intelligent AI, then yes, it would have access to all this data. But
Mhm.
I mean, and they are trying to do that. I don't know exactly what their goals are with it. I don't quite trust that Mark Zuckerberg has like the best,
Mhm.
ideas in mind for it. But given what the ramifications of his other stuff was, and I think I'll even show this quick meme that I had here from before it's in the channel. It's like um I think it's like from Mark Zuckerberg, and it has. I'll share this. Like, I mean, I guess I don't want to be too anti Zuck right now, but all right, I'll share this. Share my screen real quick. This was when he was
Oh
creating
yeah.
like Facebook, and then you know, I mean that's just an example, but I think it does bring up the point like is why do we trust these like companies, to be like they're the kind of the if even if they control a super intelligence, why do we trust that they have the interests of humanity at heart, you know, or that they're going to even be able that they're going to even have the incentives to align it with the with with not doom, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, so that's another question, which is kind of, I mean, it's not on the questions list, but I think it might I mean, do you have any opinions on that one? Do you guys have any opinions on that one?
I'll
Uh,
go a step back. I think like AI could totally exploit human psychology. I mean, just from like the all the meta AI girlfriend stuff, I feel like I watched a video on that recently, which was filled with like testimonials about people with their AI girlfriends. I'm like, yeah, I don't think every human is manipulatable, but I think there's a decent number of humans who would have joined a cult anyway that AI can totally manipulate.
okay. I have a. I don't want to like stay on the. We can talk more about it this if you want, but I guess I consider it a bit of a distraction because it's more of a personal opinion about this specific method of attack to get out of its box.
Okay,
Uh,
they're gonna be AI cultists. If we have random ass
I,
cultists who believe in aliens, there's gonna be AI cults.
I still remain skeptical that an AI would have, you know, I didn't think about the full like, data set that, for example, Facebook has being fed into an AI. I was thinking of it more along the lines of like psychological studies and that kind of data. That is significantly scarier than I previously thought, but I still think that it's not really too concerning on the will this be able to get it out of the box type situation. Because for one, the problem is that there's a sort of hard difference between the stimuli to click cause and effect, where there's an obvious direct relationship that can be easily measured, versus the stimuli to arbitrary human action causation, which is significantly murkier, right? Like maybe they're caused solely by whatever text the AI agent sends them, or maybe they're influenced by like a myriad of other factors that can be in their life. Like human action is just um
Yeah, I mean, with that data, it's with that data, with that like data labeling, like it's not. I mean, they obviously don't have enough information to like. I mean, with just that problem, like, okay, they don't. They might not have enough. I mean, they might be able to create some correlate to it just by creating like some transformation to the
mhm.
like space that is how that human acts on you know
Yeah,
on.
but
But they
it's
would
a
have
sort
to.
of one-dimensional thing, right? It's like looking at based on which stimuli does the human like click. I
But they
assume
also. I
is
mean,
most of
they
the
also have
data we
like
have.
they also would have a lot of information about the stimuli themselves, and then
Uh,
they have the graph, like a graph of like how does it relate to other stimuli, like how does this video that they watch, say it's a like say TikTok for example, say they someone has like a someone's watching a lot of videos about some conspiracy theory,
mhm.
then like it knows that that person like is more prone to or to like another conspiracy theory because other people had you know from that other conspiracy theory had joined this other one. You know what I mean? So it
Mhm.
can know like it doesn't know it's not just a one-dimensional thing. It's also like there's a whole probably graph of like that they're analyzing about um how different stimuli are like impactful to other like they probably just do a graph representation of each uh stimuli, and they also have labels, probably multiple labels probably generated by another AI on like
Mhm.
videos and pictures and describing it about the so
Yeah, I mean, I have no disagreement at all about the idea that they have these very high dimensional models of how stimuli affect human action. But I think that the problem is there's two aspects of
Well,
this, right? The
I mean, not
stimuli.
human action, but probably like human, just their how long they stay on, or I mean,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
they act on that, how they act on that platform.
This is my problem with the transformation of this data to arbitrary human action, which would be necessary to like the eventual theoretical goal of like convincing a human to like let it access the internet arbitrarily, for example, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
but it wouldn't.
like
But
the
wouldn't it only take like
One human.
maybe it would only take like like a not an orthogonal. I mean, okay, I'm trying to think about this in like a vector space, but like maybe there is some transformation that it can do to that on that like on some matrix representation of that human, based on that to like then maybe it's also combined with an LLM that like knows about that can like operate in that latent space of how that human is.
Mhm. I mean, precisely what I'm saying is that I think an AI would be able to get a human to like click on an arbitrary YouTube video. I think like an extremely intelligent AI could like make like for a specific person make a like title and thumbnail that is totally clickable that like they will definitely click on. But I'm unconvinced that an AI would be able to, for example, like make a human like, oh yeah, I'll just plug you into the internet.com type situation, right? Because that's just a totally different action that it doesn't have much data about, right? Like all of the data is about getting people to click on YouTube videos or stay on the website or click on articles or whatever. I don't know what happens on Facebook. Uh,
Yeah,
like leave likes or
I'm not
whatever.
saying that I think it's like that with that data. I'm not saying that I think that that's like going to be an easy outcome, but I'm saying like if it becomes super intelligent, then there is data that it could use to manipulate
I just
human
straight up don't
psychology.
think you need that complicated of a human model. Like people do catfishing all the time, and it's just like a much harder catfish. But it's not for a super intelligent being. I think this is just like not a very hard problem. You just gotta manipulate a small group of humans. You just have to make a cult. That's all you really need. And
Well,
lots of humans have pulled off cults without any super intelligence.
this would really only work for the researchers working on the super intelligent thing itself, right?
I'm assuming like if they figure out super intelligence, okay. I guess from the internet perspective, yeah, you just need a few cultists within your company. Yes.
You got to convince the few cultists to join the
Yeah.
company and plug it into the internet.
Yeah.
I
You
mean, that is
just
an
need
interesting
to be
question. Like, yeah, do you think?
charismatic.
I mean, I guess it is an interesting question. Like, do you think that the companies are they more? I mean, they're probably more at risk of like the people that can create AIs are probably more at risk of also like creating. I mean, they're by definition they're the ones that are more prone to creating like dangerous AIs because they just take up most of the you know the space that would create AIs. But I mean, it's not to say that regular people couldn't be convinced into doing it. But I mean,
I don't know, man. There are too many people with AI girlfriends with like not even really very intelligent AI right now. That I
Mhm.
feel like if there was a super intelligent AI, it just has to figure out how to be charismatic to humans that are
Yeah.
not that intelligent. It doesn't have to convince every human. It just has to convince a small subset.
I mean, I think this is like the other case, and I think this is another question entirely because I don't think the accomplishment of AI being so popular as to inspire like people to attempt friendship with it is a result of particular intelligence. I think it's
Yeah, I
instead.
don't agree. I think it's intelligence. I just think humans are like relatively easy to manipulate given like those few conditions that are pre-existing.
Well, I think it's essentially accidental from the the starting position of like the AI company is trying to make the thing widely used, and secondly, the AI company makes it very amenable to human input to like give the user what they want. Because I think in
Yeah.
general, as it turned out, if we learned anything from this, it's not like it's not in particular that humans are very manipulable arbitrarily, but it's instead that humans are very like easy to please if you just like agree with them all the time and say talk about how great they are.
which could be used
Yeah.
as a form of manipulation, though.
Yeah.
That's true, but it's not an intentional form of manipulation in current ChatGPT.
Okay, I'm
But
not
like
saying that
if
current Chat. I'm
ChatGPT
not
was a
saying that.
tad smarter, it could do it
I'm not saying
intentionally.
this is current ChatGPT because it doesn't have those. I mean, it's like a. I mean, it's like a boxed genie, right?
Mhm.
Or sorry,
I'm just.
a boxed oracle. So it doesn't have like. It is like or like OpenAI. I mean, OpenAI read this book before they
Mhm.
founded it. They founded
Yeah.
this book. They founded OpenAI because of this book, actually. I mean, not fully, but um, like that was part of the reason why they called it open and like did that stuff until what I mean, people claim that it uh kind of ended up like as a for-profit company when it was supposed to be just a non-profit. Um,
Mhm.
which I mean that also kind of is leads me to like the question of like okay if the I mean it just leads to another question of the alignment. I mean I guess it's humans that would be misaligned in that case if they took it the initial goals and like pushed them out and like went for profit instead of. I mean they're claiming. I mean I don't know. Like some people claim that Altman has like no no stake in the company, but I find that hard to believe.
Mhm.
I don't know, but I know that I mean, if you read the like if you read the like recommendations on this book, has like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, but notably not Mark Zuckerberg. Although Mark Zuckerberg is invoking the name when he's talking in his news. I don't know. It is like I mean it is I think it is like definitely important to consider because this is something that many people are working on. Like
Mhm.
many people at least think about this a lot now. Like it's not like this is just what it was 10 years ago when AI was still neural nets. I mean, it is still neural nets, but still like RNNs and LSTM and stuff. But I mean, yeah. Sorry. I mean, going back to the. I mean, yeah. I guess I'll try to bring it back to the questions, but I mean, so yeah. I mean, and the cognitive superpowers. So they're like, we already talked about this kind of. There's the different cognitive superpowers he claimed it might have, like amplification, strategizing, social manipulation, hacking, technology research, or economic productivity. So I was wondering, like, which do you think are more likely to, or most likely for an AI developed today or in the future? And I think we discussed the social manipulation one, which
Mhm.
is like, you know, that one is hard to like describe exactly what it could do. Um, I wonder, like, do you think that any of these are most prevalent today? Because I mean, it's been 10 years since this book was created, so AI was a lot less prevalent then.
Mhm. I think the one out of these that can be best argued for today is probably economic productivity, given the general rise in the economy created by the AI boom. But I think even that's debatable. I don't think any of these particular superpowers have been fully demonstrated yet.
That's fair, yeah. And he also says that there's a kind of a timeline which he thinks is going to occur where
Oh yeah,
there's like the where I guess not the like figure 11 but the um
this figure 10.
I think figure 10 where he talks about sorry I'm trying to find it.
Oh yeah, intelligence amplification
Yeah,
and then
so
economic
intelligent
productivity.
amplification comes first and then these other ones. So I wonder I mean also in the I don't know if you read the AI 2027 um forecast, but I mean it is kind of like that intelligence precedes these other things
Oh yeah,
where like what like it just takes recursive self-improvement for these other things to occur because can these capabilities so that's why
yeah.
it's
Then I guess
argue
none of them are really the case. Yeah.
yeah I mean it is crazy though that it's been like how rapid it has been though. I mean,
Mhm.
but I guess looking at the like let me see if I can find GPT-5 benchmarks versus like GPT like O3 and GPT-4. I mean, that's just a random one, but I mean, it's like it doesn't look on some of these like I mean, I guess it is. I guess it has been improved quite a bit. I mean, but it still is like I don't know what the benchmark would be for like exponential improvement. But I mean, even these. I mean, even looking at like PhD level science questions, it says. I mean, I guess GPT-4 to GPT-5 went from like 70% to 89%, but it's hard to say what's a recurse. I mean, what's self improvement and what is like recursive self improvement and what is actually exponential self improvement.
Yeah, I'm
Because
not sure if it's actually at the point of self improvement even AI researchers, to the extent that they would use AI today, aren't using it as a replacement for their own work. So for it to be truly self-improving, in my view, it would have to not include external people at all, right?
yeah, and I think
Uh,
that's what this AI 27 forecast talks about is like how could like yeah today it's like a stumbling agent or something and
mhm.
late late
I feel like a lot
2025.
of jobs would be replaced by ChatGPT before it figures out self-improvement anyway. It's gonna be obvious at some point.
But I mean
True.
the there's the most incentive for AI companies to develop a self-improving AI. So um
That is true, but like it has to be able to do like something of economic value so that it can improve to do that thing of economic value better. If otherwise, there's no point in giving a lot of money to these AI companies.
well I guess I mean if I mean they're saying that like that intelligence precedes these other like skills. For example, economic productivity, hacking, expansion, strategizing, all these other
Mhm.
things kind of
Like
I
I
think,
think AI has to replace most like software jobs before it has is good enough at software to be able to self-improve, for example.
yeah, maybe the forecast given by Bostrom in the book is somewhat inaccurate in that we're getting some of the economic productivity benefits of AI before actually achieving self-improving AI.
yeah. Yeah, I
But
mean,
that's really a really minor error, if anything.
yeah, but I do wonder like okay, if it's doing these PhD level science questions at,
Yeah.
89% accuracy and like even the world's top mathematicians are like using it for stuff. I just wonder if it's really not being like if it's so quick to say that it isn't recursively self-improving yet or starting it's obviously not like an intelligence explosion which Bostrom would define as like okay it just it does this in like you know 3 months or even shorter than that like that it would just recursively self-improve to be way beyond human. I mean I guess that's kind of a limitation on um I mean that's kind of a limitation by what data it has and model I guess um but yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's hard to say that whether I mean it could also be recursively indirectly self-improving because through humans, just like humans become more, which is not really self-improving, I guess. That's indirect. So,
Yeah. In my opinion, I mean, it's this one's kind of cut and dry. Like the AI, I can see the argument for like indirect self improvement that like just by making it more possible to work on, uh, programming and that kind of thing, it might like hasten the development. But to me, like it's kind of clear that for it to be truly self improving, it would require some kind of like changing or modification of the sort of training algorithm it's using. Or, for example, if an AI came up with a novel method to train LLMs, right? Like that would be a clear cut case of self-improving, and something like that hasn't happened.
Right. Yeah. Um. And yeah, I mean, I think
As I understand, like most of the advancement in AI is because we throw more compute at it. Like I think the algorithms are getting better as well. Or not, it's definitely not the case that they're not getting better. But is
Yeah.
most of the progress going to become just from the fact that the compute is scaling exponentially, or is it going to be from algorithmic improvement?
that does go
I,
back to the thing about like recalcitrance, or I think recalcitrance over like optimization power. Um, that he talked about in like this like what a like also you can, it doesn't necessarily need to be self-improving. It can just has to, you know, have enough optimization power to, or I guess it has to have enough optimization power to become recursively self-improving,
mhm.
which is like means that, or the rate of technological improvement is like basically the the optimization power over the recalcitrance. So um, the recalcitrance being the inverse of how sensitive it is to optimization power. Um,
Mhm.
but
I think to the point that the AI models are mostly improving because of increases to hardware or like physical computation. I would slightly disagree. I think that that's true in the past few years, where we've seen like massive data centers. I'm sorry, being constructed, massive data structures. We're building the largest binary tree in the world. No, I think that yeah, that's definitely true in the past few years. But if you like look back to the past decade, I think that an argument can be made that, for example, the development of like more novel or more recent algorithms have actually made these things possible in the first place, and that's a significantly larger development than hardware. So I don't think it's impossible that we would see another like form of model or training developed that would further improve it, and it wouldn't be impossible as well for it to be developed by an artificial intelligence.
yeah, and I mean, I think the also like in that case the, I guess the recalcitrance goes up when the kind of the space of like the model, or like data fitting to the model has been like optimized to its furthest extent. Like I mean, there's almost like the case that, you know, like modern day LLMs with chain of thought have like kind of seem to be hitting a bit of a stagnation on terms of like, or did at least at one point, where there's not enough data on the internet to like public data on the internet that actually can improve the model anymore. So I mean, I
Mhm.
guess, or that the, you know, becomes less sensitive to it. But I
And then
mean,
honestly, I think part of the problem in the future will also be like lots of the AI data. I feel like now the internet is a decent bit just AI generation. At some point, the AI is gonna start training on mostly its own data.
yeah, I mean that's commonly like thought of problem. Like, you know, if,
Mhm.
and it is like a thing. Like, yeah, I mean, if you continually, I mean, it's a question like if you're if it's, even if it's inputting back to itself on stuff, like if that is not even, if that's not like aligned, or it's not, or it's like a chaotic kind of process, then it'll produce like random results at the end. Um,
Mhm.
because like if it just has some randomness in it, then like eventually, if it's mostly that, but you, so it has to have some like external source of truth to like kind of lead it to lead it to like not just have its own feedback loop into chaos.
Mhm. That's why I feel like I highly suspect like we're gonna have like limited super intelligence in the future, but I don't think we're gonna have general super intelligence very soon.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a function of like what the data that it would collect would be. I mean, or what the data that can use, or what its goals would be. I mean, it maybe it has to collect the data that it maybe that's like most useful for its goal, or it has to like generate like maybe it has to generate its own data about just based on like simulations and stuff, and then use that.
I don't know. I've been thinking, right? This is a question I want to ask Liam. Now it's like math has like proof assistance and stuff like that, where like no human has to be involved in the loop to check if a proof is true or not. Can like AI not just hit super intelligence in math? It just doesn't need humans. It can generate proofs and then check the proof on a proof assistant.
Yeah. I think that might be a challenge. I haven't looked too much into the proof assistant stuff. I saw some of Terrence Howe's material on it, but I think it's definitely possible that um, yeah,
I mean, like that could be.
I see it as like
Hmm.
definitely possible that at least like niche problems can be solved by AI in the same way that they're frequently solved by normal people going through like typical mathematical methods to try to solve them. I'm not sure if that quantifies the sort of super intelligence that Bostrom envisions. I think that's more closer to like the way that a chess engine plays chess perfectly.
I was just thinking about that same
Maybe
thing. Yeah, like chess. It's
yeah,
similar to the chess because it's like a closed system. But
yeah,
Yeah.
we could see like a proof assistance AI sort of apply currently existing mathematical techniques perfectly to solve problems, which certainly is like this is productive, right? Like that's not like it will be discovering new mathematics with that methodology, uh, but the fact that it won't be able to produce new methods, you know, given that the way that current kinds of those technologies work, I think that the most exciting problems in mathematics that like people have already thrown all the existing methods at probably won't be easily solvable. That's what I imagine
So like
anyway.
you don't think because like math is an entirely closed system, there'll be like you can't set up an AI machine that just does like reinforcement learning on math to eventually be better than any mathematician.
Yeah, I don't think, for example, like if you said, "Hey AI, you have to solve the rebound hypothesis," it's gonna like throw the sink at it, and it's going to find out what everyone already else tried, right? Everyone else
In terms of LLMs, yes, but I feel like is a special case where like math has an entirely closed loop way of finding a truth. Where like you for a science, some human needs to go check, but
I
for
mean, but
math,
does
no
it? I
human
mean,
needs
even
to
even like
go
the
check.
incompleteness theorem and like
Yeah, but
stuff
like
says
the
that like
incompleteness theorem just says that there will always be more math. No, there will be math problems that cannot be solved. But for like
try.
any math problem a human can find the answer to, I don't see why an AI can't find the answer to as well.
if your
Just because.
contention if your contention is that it would be able to find the answer by traditional computation or brute force,
Mm-hmm.
there is actually a part of superintelligence chapters 1 to 5 that talks about this, and that
Really?
this was tried in the 70s, where they just try every possible next step brute force until they
Mm-hmm.
find the solution to certain proofs,
I'm not
and it
saying
turns
brute
out
force, but yeah, I kind of get what you mean in terms of like you can't brute force your way to math proofs because of like
yeah, like
exponential explosions.
even if it is like totally logical, finding the logical series of steps would be an exponential process.
that's why
Right.
it's like they have like these like like the human brain is like has like certain pattern like the way that human brains solve math is by like pattern matching and representing the concepts in like these patterns and then like pattern you know kind of pattern matching, I guess, if that I mean, or pattern like recognition or pattern application. I don't know. It's mostly just patterns of information that it's like, you know, it's taking into account. And like, what's to say that an AI with, that's operating at the speed of, 1,000 times a human, like on a, I mean, like that can't that it couldn't like like learn all the learn how to do math better than humans if it has a lot more time, it has a lot more speed, it has a lot more of all these other things because humans have to do all these other things, but an AI can just run for a long time. It can just run constantly, and it's much faster than human in terms of like each each like I mean they also said that in the first in one of the first chapters, like about how, what's the difference between a like digital intelligence, and it says like, yeah, I mean axons carry action potentials at, this is on page like 59, talking about how like the human brain has fewer than 100 billion neurons. Supercomputers can be warehouse sized or larger with initial remote capacity. You know, computer hardware is indefinitely scalable up to very high physical limits. Like axons carry action potentials at speed of 120 meter. Is that meters per second? And then uh, electronic processing cores can communicate optically at the speed of, 300 million meters per second. So like I mean, biological neurons operate at a peak speed of about 200 hertz. Even if it's less, even if like the AI is less efficient in terms of like energy efficiency, it might still be like, even for these math problems, it could like, what's to say that it can't just run a lot more simulations and everything and like just become a much better pattern matcher than the best human.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I'd
and I
say,
actually
yeah.
think AI will, if it like is super intelligent at anything in our lifetimes, it'll be something like math that is like fully closed loop.
Okay, I'd say that, to the extent that like that's true, it would also have to be significantly different to how artificial intelligences are made today. Like
True, true. It
that's
can't
just
be
not
like an
how
LLM.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
not
mean
how
it can't be.
like
It's not an
currently
LM.
existing
I mean, but they did
proof
so
Yeah.
solvers
they did. I mean,
work.
didn't they? I mean, they did kind of already though do
Yeah,
these
like
like,
there is like one of the teams that won the gold medal does this where like it uses a proof assistant in connection with these large language models to solve like the IMO problems and just check it automatically if the
Mhm.
proof is correct or not because it writes the code that can be checked as well.
yeah, I guess there is kind of like
Yeah,
a ground truth for what is like, considered a true proof. So it can like
And you
it
don't
could
even
it
have the
has you
synthetic
can
data problem
yeah, so you could
because
just keep
like
continue generating these and then have it
and
solve
the
these.
proof assistant can check if the proof is correct or not. So like math, I think might actually be a special case where like you don't have the synthetic data problem. You can have like self reinforcement because you know which proofs are true and not, and can be checked independently of humans. Like I think this might actually be possible.
But what is it not just
Mostly because
learning?
there's just
But
no
is it not just learning like? I mean, it's just learning the patterns of whatever mathematical data you give it, I guess.
yeah, I mean, from what I understand, what they're doing is using existing mathematical methodologies to solve these problems, right? But sometimes new mathematical methodologies are found and then are used to do novel
Hmm.
problems, right?
I
So I
think
don't
like
think.
my counter to that would be like, it's not like a chess engine is just only using chess we already know of. Like,
Mhm,
AlphaGo isn't just playing Go the same way humans have forever because they can do self reinforcement without like humans in the loop, right? It can play a gazillion games of Go. It can invent its own new Go strategies. I feel like because math has the special exception where like a human does not need to check it, it can like write its own proof with whatever method it wants.
mhm.
Like you can do self reinforcement just like you can do in chess, but in
The,
finding math proofs.
the difference, though, between a math proof and like a chessboard, for example, is that even if there's an extremely large number of chess moves, it's still like a finite amount. But to find a truly novel strategy to like tell an AI to do something truly novel, you would have to accept that there's like an infinite possible amount of things that it could do, right? I think there is a difference
Uh,
in kind there.
I would agree. Yeah, I think you make a good point that there is like an infinity to mathematics that doesn't exist for like Go or chess.
But it could still develop like a pattern recognition or pattern. I could still see meta patterns that maybe the best human mathematician couldn't see, and like use that to solve, maybe 10x the number type of proofs or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying it might be able to find some like if it can
I
do
think
this
like this is
like
definitely a case
if
with
AI were set up like human brains, then I would agree. But that's not representative of currently existing
you don't think it's I mean
AI.
human brains like I mean
I think it kind of is
it
though.
kind of it kind of is like can it's kind of better than human brains in some sense, I guess, in terms of like it's but it just has doesn't have as much data and efficiency because it but it has like this it can hold a lot more things in RAM than like a human brain, for example. Because like a human brain only can hold like 7 things in working memory at a time or something. I mean, if you extend it, but with tricks. But the typical human can hold like 7 things in working memory, but an AI can hold like. I was thinking about this the other time. Like an AI could probably
Yeah, but
hold a
I
lot
think
more.
the problem with AI is that's true for a computer. That's not true for an LLM.
Well, I
And
mean the
like
LLM
LLMs
even.
have
I
like
mean the LLM with the like how it can do like with the kind of transformer architecture. It seems
Mhm.
like it's doing these pairwise comparison, like not pairwise, but I mean maybe pairwise, like pairwise comparisons between every token. So it's like holding all of those tokens in memory out in working memory out at the same time.
I don't know, man. I feel like AI, like maybe
It
RAM
doesn't have as
might be
much
like a
depth,
super
but
special case, but like AI has much worse persistent memory than most humans.
well, yeah, that's just because there's because it's the human has a lot more data and like a lot more. It has a lot. I mean, it is a lot more like efficient at this moment in terms of like it's just been optimized by evolution to do these to like hold the right things in memory that it needs and develop these super efficient pattern recognition systems. But
Mhm.
that's not to say that the AI, like the AI, the I mean, the transformer is very like a crude architecture in comparison to the human brain. I guess is what I mean. That's what you're arguing, I guess. But
Yeah,
um,
that is kind of
that
what
might be just
we're
that
doing.
might be that doesn't mean that the human brain lacks a very simple mechanism like the attention mechanism that to like force
The
training,
human
but
might
it
like
just might
brain
have
might
like
have a
a
simple
lot more data
mechanism,
or
but we
something.
don't know what that mechanism is.
I mean, I think it's. I mean, there's like obviously hypotheses about it. I don't know. I mean, I think like it uses. It's like similar to reinforcement learning, and that it uses like dopamine to reinforce prediction errors. I mean, I have hypotheses about it, like kind of like the free energy principle type stuff.
I
Um,
would agree. It's probably free energy is closer
like it's
than what
making
we're doing
prediction
with
errors,
LLM.
but that's kind of the training method, which is like, I mean, the free energy also includes action, so it's not fully analogous to a just a prediction. It has like because it's a joint optimization between action and perception. But
Mhm.
the I think the AI like is using prediction error signals, and so does the human brain. But also like the human brain has other utility functions that optimize which prediction error signals are more like should when they should be used as positive or negative or whatever. So like there's just a lack of I mean there's the only utility function for the AI is like what does the human want in terms of like this reinforced setup, the human feedback, but they're probably a lot more complex utility functions for the human case. I think that you can still I still think that the free energy stuff is like a good model of how people learn, but I mean it doesn't actually say how people learn, but it says like what the utility function is that they're trying to optimize, which is mostly tries to optimize prediction error and like also take the actions that you maximize utility while also
I
minimizing
like humans don't actually maximize utility though.
well it depends on I mean the utility in terms of like I guess they're right so I mean I think
I
they're
feel like that is a
it's
problem with like
encoded in
any.
it's encoded in the like the how their states it's encoded in how like the sensory um data affects the states of the internal states of the human. for the
That didn't
brain.
make any sense to me. But I
Yeah, I
don't
mean it's
think
part of
humans
it's
act perfectly
yeah. No, they don't act
rationally.
perfect. I mean perfectly rationally. I mean that's different than utility in terms of like
Like I don't think like the utility function even like enforces just even pure self survival maximally, because like if even if it was just like pure like self survival was what the function that it maximized for,
well
like
not rationally, not
evolution
like a
type.
rationally thing. Like a it's not like a rational thing. It's more like evolution like has these like signals that it I mean the sorry, let me go back to the like free energy principle and like I'm still trying to understand this more, but it has like the agent has like a sensory model. There's a model of the environmental dynamics, which is like how the environment changes over time, and then the action model. Or I'll share my screen too.
You
Um,
are.
oh, I already am, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, you are.
I didn't even realize that. But yeah, I mean, it has like this is what they say and then you can kind of encode these utility functions as like a um a prior over this internal model. I think like how it responds to how it wants to be in like it assigns those states as more likely that it wants to be in or something. I'm still working on that. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it, but the main point is that one of the things it does is minimize prediction error, at least
Mm-hmm.
because there's a problem of like not reaching the utility function, but there's also the problem of like missing the predicted utility, if that makes sense, which is like another problem for the utility itself, the maximization of that utility itself, which would lead to it wanting to minimize prediction error. But all this to say that I think the AI is not doing that full process of like having a utility function. It just, I mean, it has the reinforcement learn the human feedback one, but it doesn't have the full like priors over the how these sensory states affect the internal model. That would kind of lead to these different utility expectations. Maybe that might have been a bit like that might sound like word salad, but I mean I do think this is an interesting formulation of like how the brain works. Of like this joint optimization problem between action and perception, where they're trying to minimize these two things. Um, or they're trying to minimize this function, which is a function of these two properties. Like, because like, I mean, it just if you're trying to like, you have to be in like this state where it's not too. I mean, I guess another thing with reinforcement learning is that you like that's kind of an unsolved problem is like um the balance between exploitation and exploration, right? Like when does like if you're trying to maximize utility, then at what point do you stop exploring the environment and say I'm gonna choose to stick with my action, but and you can prove it for certain like bounded scenarios, right?
Mhm.
Where like the number of states, where you could predict the number of states very well, but when it's an unbounded thing, how do you balance exploitation or exploration and exploitation? That's another thing in reinforcement learning. That's still like a hard problem to solve, right? Like, I mean, it has to. The only way to solve it is to specify a bounded problem. I think. Um, yeah. All right. I'll stop talking. I mean, I just some ideas, but yeah. I mean, they say that. I guess they say that. Another thing is that they say if you look at this like utility, they say like exploitation. They, okay. They say something about okay. I know they don't. It's not on this one. Okay, but there is something that like if the free energy is minimized, then it is in some sense balancing the um exploration with exploitation. But it uses these approximations about it, and it's also the thing about it is that's not some of these models are like they require a model of how you know they require these Bayesian like state update models, but the states are like could be potentially infinite or intractable. So yeah, still an interesting thing to look into though. Yeah, so I'll go back to the questions though. I am actually gonna do some like write a paper about that or something, or write a philosophy paper. Not a maybe not a published paper, but wait, I can't get back to the like recording thing is in the way. I can't like get rid of it.
I see.
I'm trying to get back to the questions.
I think a brief, like, small note, maybe to characterize my opinion about mathematics and
Yeah, sorry, I
AI.
just went to a huge tangent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair. I mean, I hope that this isn't like too distracting or start something off on its own. But I think just the way that I see mathematics maybe might have been misunderstood or mistaken
Okay.
because I generally see it as a sort of positive process and not as a process of like discovering already existing principles. So I would agree that like an AI would be able to do novel mathematics in the same way that an AI can obviously already write novel text, right? Uh,
But you
because to
agree
do
that
new
but you agree
mathematics is
like
just a
like
positive.
in terms of like the new like a new chess, for example.
Mhm. No, but that's it's a totally different thing because you can't invent a new chess move. Like you can't just like move your bishop forward and say like what now? But you can like invent and you should invent new mathematics. Like that's kind of the entire point of it. Maybe that like better characterizes why I gave the reason I did for why I wouldn't think an AI would be able to tackle.
Have you played around with those proof assistants?
I have not. I have not.
I was playing around with them. It's actually quite interesting.
Mhm.
So do you think like I mean if you can formally specify it. I mean I guess there's no like there's no real like formal foundations for all of mathematics because that was disproven or kind of not disproven but I mean I guess it was kind of disproven, right?
Yeah, which is why it's a positive process of like creating new principles.
I think there's like some general like anything that a human could do in that space that there's
Yeah.
some general like pattern matching technique that an AI could like pick up on.
I think there is eventually, but to do that, I personally think would also require you to sort of understand what humans find interesting in the first place. So you'd have to solve a lot of like seemingly unrelated problems first.
Actually, I have a question. How do proof assistants work if there is no like formal definition for mathematics?
Well, there's formal definitions for like certain mathematical things, which I assume proof assistants work within the bounds of. But what I'm
Oh, so
saying
like,
is like you can't go and
okay.
tell it like produce a new like people like invented abstract algebra, right? Like this wasn't something
But
that
like
existed
after
in the
abstract
ether.
algebra is invented, if you just want to solve a theorem within abstract algebra, you can use AI to do that, is what you mean.
I'd agree, yeah, but I think all the sort of interesting mathematics that is done is by inventing these new paradigms. And like what a
Uh,
human would find interesting is kind of the thing that makes such a paradigm like important.
I think I get what you mean now.
Like again, I think like AI in the same way that AIs can currently produce writing, I have no problem like disbelieving the idea that like within already existing mathematical frameworks, an AI would be able to like come up with something new or even interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm actually now more curious as to how this shit proof assistants even work. I assume there is some formal like there is some formal definition of math, at least for like certain spheres of math that are well understood.
yeah, yeah, it's saying in the
Hmm.
in the Wikipedia article that's on the screen.
I mean,
I
I'm
can't
trying
read
to read what
anywhere
these.
close to as fast as he's scrolling.
I'm not.
And
I'm
for
looking. I'm looking
example,
for something like you know. All right, proposal for
one line. Oh,
I
yeah, go
mean,
ahead.
yeah. What is this? I mean, you guys got to tell me what you think is interesting in these things because I don't really know what any of these are, honestly.
I think they were very cool. There was a
Oh,
game that
Lisp.
just like
Okay,
proved
implementation
some.
language. Lisp, Haskell, OCaml,
Oh,
OCaml.
Lean 4 is the one that everyone's using nowadays.
Lean. Okay,
Hmm.
Lean proof assistant. Let's see. History overview. Examples. All right. So, alpha proof. They used alpha proof. Let's just look at what alpha proof does.
Oh, it's a language model,
Yeah, it's a language model, but
and to master games. So yeah, it would work within
oh yeah, no,
already
it's a
existing
no, it's
mathematical
it's mostly a
frameworks.
reinforcement learning. No, it couples a language model with reinforcement learning. So like if for it
Ooh.
like uses the language model converted into some latent to convert the math into some latent representation, and then it tries to predict how to like solve that proof, and
Hmm.
then if it gets it correct based on based on whatever conversion that I mean it probably just converts both of it into both the proof and its solution into this latent representation. Then it uses the reinforcement learning to to solve over that latent representation.
Yeah, so my contention in that case for how that would work, for why it might not be able to do everything that a typical mathematician would do. Not to say that these things won't eventually be able to replace mathematicians, but to say that like why the currently existing technology can't, if that was the question. It's because, for example, like the fact that it has to turn it into a representation is problematic towards creating new ways of thinking about the problem in the first place. Like if you imagine having, for example, a proof assistant that perfectly knew how to turn like geometry problems and Euclidean geometry into like representations, it would be able to pretty quickly, even without being given the proofs beforehand, like knock out all the proofs in Euclidean geometry. I have no doubts about that. But then, like once we get to the very human questions of like, hey, do we need Euclid's fifth postulate? I think the AI would not necessarily directly or immediately come up with the hyperbolic geometry that humans did, just out of like the much less well understood human sort of instinct to see what happens when that we do that, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Are you guys familiar with like hyperbolic geometry or its origins
Yeah,
historically?
I understand the concept that like that the difference between like Euclidean and non-Euclidean geometry is that there is like an axiom that nobody could see why it has to be assumed, and if you don't assume that axiom, or like assuming or not assuming gives you Euclidean versus non-Euclidean geometry.
Yes, it's the fifth postulate, which is the parallel
Hmm.
postulate, that if you make a line that's perpendicular to two other lines, then those two other lines won't intersect. That's a different way of putting it than Euclid put it, but that's basically it.
So you're saying that this language model would not necessarily like immediately would like not think of to represent it in that way. But you could also
Uh,
imagine like if it's just doing more like intellectual, work than all humans combined, which it's
mhm.
not at this point, I don't think. But if it was just if you had like, all these things like doing a bunch of things like that, like it's prompted to say, just investigate rejection of
What I would be interested in,
different axioms.
do you think it can solve all of Euclidean geometry then? Because like we understand the axioms of Euclidean geometry and we've
Yeah,
been working with it for years. And if there's like a problem in Euclidean geometry we haven't currently solved, could we train an AI to go solve it for us without inventing any new technology?
I,
Just using
I, I
proof resistance and LLM.
yeah, that could probably be done, right?
Hmm. That
I
would
mean,
be a
that's
type of super intelligence, if you ask me, because if there's a Euclidean problem that we haven't solved, and but we could solve using like scaled up versions of current technology, it is superhuman within the space of Euclidean geometry.
okay then. Well, if you have that belief, then University of Illinois actually achieved superintelligence in like the 80s when they solved the
Really?
four color theorem with computers.
Huh?
Yeah,
So it's like possible for a computer to solve all Euclidean geometry problems already.
Well, it's possible for a computer to solve a problem that a human can't, though, which is the example you brought up.
Well, I would say like if it can solve all Euclidean problems better than a human can, that I would consider that a type of like superintelligence.
I see it.
I mean
Like
that
I would
I mean
consider
chess is
chess
like
A and
chess
B
is
to
The
like
be
a
a
super.
type of superintelligence.
that seems a little strange to me, though, right?
I don't
Like,
think I mean
No?
it's narrow. It's narrow.
like
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not saying
it's a
it's
narrow
general. I'm just saying
example.
it's limited superintelligence.
Yeah, and I think it's widely agreed upon that like narrow examples of superintelligence already exist, right?
I would say it's more impressive if somebody gave me an AI that can just like solve all Euclidean problems. I would consider that a like much better than anything we've done currently with AI.
Mm. Well, I think part of the problem is that you have to know a lot about Euclidean geometry to make the representation to give to the AI, right? Or make the what does it call it? The symbolic engine and
The reinforcement learning algorithm.
not the reinforcement just like the way that it
Oh,
translates that into
to
whatever
automatically. Oh
abstract
yeah, the
symbols it
fine tuning
uses.
of the Gemini model to automatically translate natural language problem statements into formal statements, creating a
Yep.
large library of formal problems of varying difficulty.
Yeah, I mean
And
that
then for
would
this
by
perfect, then
itself
their form,
already
then their for this purpose, mathematical statements are defined in the formal language lean.
I mean that kind of thing would already require a lot of mathematical knowledge to do in that field, right? Just the
True.
practical work of actually formalizing all these things.
Dude, DeepMind does a lot
But
of
I
stuff.
think we have. I'm assuming in Lean they've formalized most of like undergrad math. At least
Yeah.
that's what I figured out when I read it.
Well,
But
most of
like,
undergrad math is also solved, right? That's why it's undergrad math.
there are still unsolved like Euclidean problems, and then you learn most of like geometry in undergrad, right? So I feel like
Hmm.
there will be ways where like if you eventually get an AI that says I will solve all calculus problems for you, that would be an insanely useful AI.
Hmm. Well, there was this comment get made in the text that, well, not made in the text, it was quoted in the text that once something is possible, it's no longer called AI. Like we already well, it used to be considered like this insane amount of artificial intelligence to like be able to solve differential equations or like integrals, and now like Mathematica can just do that.
That's
Which
true.
is like a numerical
So I don't
But
think
mathematical
it
like
would
it
be
can't solve
surprising
them
at
like
all.
analytically. It's also numerically though, right? So, like I think there's slight difference.
I don't think there's I don't think there's too much of a difference between manipulating numbers and manipulating symbols.
It's
In
from
any
like my
case,
perspective, but I would agree that I mean, if you can do it numerically, probably
like there's a
most of the
technical
time it's good enough.
difference. There's a technical
Yeah,
difference, but there's not like an epistemological difference.
but I feel like an AI that can solve all calculus problems is like very useful just in the real world if someone
Yeah,
can
for
make
sure,
it.
for sure.
I would consider that definitely a type of super intelligence, especially if you're like connected to an LLM or something. So like you don't have to ask the question in Lean. You can just ask the question in English. It'll translate it into Lean, and then solve your calculus problem, and then translate the solution back into English.
Mhm.
I think that's basically super intelligence from my perspective, from like a limited
I mean,
point of
depends on how
view.
you specify how hard it
Yeah.
is to specify the problem and stuff. Or
Again,
like,
I think that's
Yeah, could
more
be.
that's more like just being surprised by new technology. I don't see that as like particularly strange. That seems like a reasonable way for technology to go.
what do you,
Like
so what do you
I
think of the
think
protein folding problem? Because it's like,
oh yeah, like that's an obvious example of something that you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like AI were able to like fold many more proteins than humans were, like on several orders of magnitude, such that this is basically a solved scientific problem now. Like, would you call that super intelligence? Because it already exists.
Protein folding is like so specific. I would go against it. But even solve something like I learned in high school, like calculus, I was like, okay, if you can solve all calculus problems, I'm willing to call that limited super intelligence.
I think limited super intelligence already exists.
yeah, I think it's,
Maybe.
I mean, I think it's like not, it's not that far away from like chess. Because
Yeah.
chess is like
I feel like
people said
calculus
like
is pretty
chess is
far
like
from chess.
people already said that chess is like. I mean, I guess calculus has a much wider. I mean, it's not. It is different, but I mean, it's the same type of thing as like, okay, people said that chess is like the kind of the epitome of human knowledge at one point. That AI could never do it, you know, and that was like people had said that it was some hallmark of like and humans were never gonna do this, and then they said, oh, humans, humans can never do Go or whatever better than.
Humans will
Sorry,
never
sorry.
be
Like
able to
I'm
play
not
Go.
saying
Or
it's
sorry, no.
not gonna
AI
be
can
able
never
to
do
do
human.
it.
AI can
But
never do Go better than humans, right? And
Mhm.
then they said like, but it's just
eh,
it keeps impressing people at like these narrow tasks. But
like
Yeah.
I think what I'm interested in, like, what is the like next limited type of domain where like AI can achieve super intelligence? And my hunch is the next limited type of domain where like AI can achieve super intelligence is like these kinds of specific sets of math problems where we've already figured out the axioms and it just has to apply the axioms continuously to
I don't
figure
know.
out.
Aren't these problems also like occasionally solved by internet anonymous people like on 4chan or whatever?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think that
Like
that's.
occasionally a calculus problem is solved by 4chan, probably.
Uh, I
well, I
think
mean,
it's
okay, another thing.
honestly,
Oh, go ahead.
if we're to come up with an example of like soon to come AI superintelligence, I mean, maybe this is just because it's at like the company I'm working at. But there's like this Yale paper about large medical models,
Mm-hmm.
where if we have a lot of data, like a lot of medical data about uh, like medical events that patients undergo, then we can treat them as tokens and then use the techniques that one would use in a large language model to then
Mm-hmm.
predict extremely rare like things to happen to those people, like things that we would otherwise consider like too difficult to track in a formal study, like for example, like because you'd be able to tokenize somebody's entire life up to that point and then predict the next tokens pretty well. And a doctor would even be able to make good use of, for example, like just hearing something like, oh, there's a 33% chance this person gets diabetes in like their next 30 tokens or whatever, right?
Oh, that sounds pretty useful, not gonna lie.
Another
Mhm.
thing is like I
So I
was
think.
listening to the Demis one. It's like their next goal after protein folding is to like create. I mean, their ultimate goal is to like create these predictions of like cells based on the protein folding to like actually be able to create like a simulation of an actual cell.
Mhm. Pretty
Or
cool.
predict cells like, and then you could make an arbitrary like disease. Or arbitrary, you could specify any like
Mhm.
any problem that you're trying to solve with regards to like how this will play out in a given like cell type, and then could like just run simulations way quicker than experiments on like biological stuff if you could do that. I mean that's that. I mean they have to first go with protein. I mean they have protein folding, but they have to. I mean it's a lot of stuff that would have to do to
Mhm.
multi-level stuff to. I don't know. I mean it says they only have. I mean not only, but I mean it says they have an accuracy 65% compared to previous state of the art of 28%. But like, does that mean that? I mean if it's 65%, then does that compound if it's in a cell?
Hmm.
The error compound doesn't it just compound there? So
Yeah, I feel like it would compound, right? Like
Yeah.
because they'd have to get them all right, you know? Like
I'm
the error
surprised
margins.
AlphaFold only had like 65% accuracy. I thought it was like 100% accurate or
yeah, let me. I
something.
mean, they won the
Well,
Nobel
you have to
Prize.
remember that like yeah, you have to remember that like previous humans were getting like 10 to 20%, right?
Yeah, it says previous state of the art
Like,
is 28%.
yeah.
But is that humans or is that a previous algorithm that got 28%?
Well, it says previous
It's
state of
not
the art.
specified.
It says previous state of the art. The
But
most recent update, AlphaFold 3, May 2024.
Okay. Yeah, so the fact
but
that
that
it's
means
not
there's an
perfect yet is a
AlphaFold 2,
technical
which is
problem.
accuracy might be 28. We don't know that 28 is humans.
What I thought there was
All right, let's look at this. Let's look at this. I mean, maybe they have a better. Maybe they're doing better now. This is Wikipedia, so could be old. Let's see, do they have a new version of AlphaFold. AlphaFold 4. Let's see. Not released yet. So I guess it's just AlphaFold 3 at this point.
But I feel like if it's 65%, and as far as I've heard, you could get a PhD for just figuring out one protein folding or a part of it. That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't they? Yeah, they said like that it did. I mean, they said it did like 1,000,000 years of work or something in like whatever time. I don't know, 1,000,000 PhD hours or something in like some
Yeah.
to get this to do this AlphaFold, which is like, I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it's probably very useful for drug companies and other things. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what it how how it would impact the science, the basic
Mhm.
science that people do, but probably
Probably does impact them. We just don't, none of us are biologists.
you're right. So I guess, yeah, let's see. I mean, I wonder. Do you all think that Google is gonna like DeepMind will be the one to create it, or do you think it'll be someone else? Or do you think it's already created? Or I mean,
DeepMind has the most research done, right? I feel like DeepMind has been doing AI research for a long time. Even the transformer architecture, I thought it was a Google.
yeah, it was Google. I don't know if it was
So
DeepMind,
like,
but
so
yeah, I
like,
mean,
I
yeah, I
feel like
guess,
Google has a significant edge, at least in terms of research.
yeah, I mean,
They just didn't figure out that if you put like a massive amount of data center worth of compute on the problem, that their transformer architecture can like at least confuse a lot of billionaires into thinking they have free AI.
True.
huh? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that these like the DeepMind mathematics stuff is might be state of the art. I think they also got gold medalists in this. I guess these are kind of old on Wikipedia now, like with the because there was one this year, right, where it got gold again. There are multiple ones, like the OpenAI one. I mean, either way, okay. Let's get back to
Mhm.
the questions. Let's get back to the questions.
Yeah, let's get back to the questions.
Yeah. All right. We gotta be. We can't be thinking about what's present day. We gotta think about
The future,
the
yeah.
future. Yeah. I mean, we're
Can't
young.
think about the future without the present or the past.
Hmm.
Well, I mean,
And you can't think about the past without the future, you know what I
you can't think
mean?
about the.
Anyway,
Can't think
Gotta
about
think of
uh,
all of time at the
but can't
same
think about
time.
you can't think about the future without without not thinking about the present at some point.
Yeah.
that's true. All right. Is intelligence amplification a necessary superpower for an AI to develop in order to develop the others? I would agree that uh, to develop strong versions of the others, certainly it's necessary. But I think we've seen like a weak version, for example, at least of the economic productivity thing that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah, I mean,
certainly with the
I think
case
it
of
is. I think it in this case. I mean, yeah, it's a necessary. I mean, for these other superpowers, like it needs to. It obviously needs to improve somehow, and it's and like humans improve it quickly, but not maybe, but like to get to the super intelligent level, eventually it will just be improving itself. I think. I mean, that's what the argument is of the book. So,
But like, how would it improve?
I mean, okay, I will go back to this. I mean, okay, no, not this. I mean, if it just redesigns its algorithm, let's. I mean, if it redesigns its algorithm and then it has some utility function, it has to like maintain the utility. It has to ensure that the goal that it previously had, which is the metric by which it's judging improvement, stays the same. And then, but otherwise, it optimizes around that goal by maybe modifying itself. But I mean, it is. I mean,
Like
think about this.
algorithms don't improve exponentially, right? We're not like exponentially better at doing arithmetic than we were 10 years ago.
That's true. Well, we're exponentially better at producing GPUs than we were 10 years ago.
Yeah, but that's Moore's law. We've known that for a while.
Yeah.
No, you just said what?
Yeah. True.
Like there was no algorithmic improvement on like as far as I understand arithmetic problems. You just like we've gotten better physical
We try to see what
computers.
his
No,
actual
I mean,
scenario
so
is.
far as I think there is like algorithmic improvement.
Okay, that is, but like it's definitely not exponential.
Well, yeah, I mean, he has this thing the I'm looking at page like 76 and um 77, like with just talking about the equations that on the kinetics of an intelligent explosion. So we can write the rate of change of the intelligence as the ratio between the optimization power applied to the system and the system's recalcitrance.
That
So
made zero sense, but okay.
you write a differential equation, which is like the optimization, like the rate of change of the intelligence over time is equivalent to the optimization power over the recalcitrance. So like
Okay, I'm gonna chalk this up to I didn't read the books. I have no idea
no,
what the
I mean
shit
it's
you
just a
said,
different.
but
I
I
mean no,
accept
it's
it.
just basically it's a simple differential equation, and then you can like depending on different scenarios you would have like either a um like say the case where consider the first case scenario in which the recalcitrance is constant, so that the rate of increase of an AI's intelligence is equal to the optimization power being applied. Assume that all the optimization power being applied comes from the AI itself, and that the AI applies all its intelligence to the act of amplifying its own intelligence. So the optimization power is equal to the rate of intelligence, to the rate of
Mhm.
um, intelligence improvement. So like di over dt equals I over k.
I don't know if that's a sufficient objection to Adarsh's point, though,
I'm just saying that's what
because
no. Then I'm gonna say that there are multiple cases. Uh, we just have to consider what the equation would actually be, and how the recalcitrance and stuff changes. Because I mean, he
Yeah,
obviously
what
says
does recalcitrance mean and what does optimization power mean?
so. Optimization power is like the um. Let me forget his definitions. So recalcitrance. I mean in the equation it's basically the inverse of the sensitivity um to the optimization power, but that doesn't really define it in terms of a real world.
yeah, like when I think the problem is, Adarsh's contention was that these things are not necessarily exponential, uh, and if the counter argument is the sort of equation that Bostrom puts forward,
Well, I'm
the
not saying no.
problem is that
I'm just saying that he has that. I'm not saying that that's the counter argument is the equation itself. I'm just saying the counter
Mhm.
argument is like you have to think about how the recalcitrance interacts with the optimization power and like whether the all like what these factors are. Um, like for example, the different types of AIs. Like it could be that you know it says like one can amplify starting with intelligent software. One can amplify collective intelligence by simply using additional computers to run more instances of the program. Or one can amplify speed intelligence by moving the program to faster computers. Amplifying the quality intelligence by increasing computing power might also be possible. The recalcitrance for amplifying collective. I'm just saying we have to consider these factors for whether
um,
it's
I
exponential or
didn't
not.
understand what the factor even was, but I trust that we have to consider other factors.
Well, I'm just
sure.
saying that's the structure of the equation is like based on based on these two. I mean, we just if we think about this equation as how it what the Like it's obviously a more complex function than that, obviously, because we're talking about the real
Mhm.
world here. But
Yeah, I mean the problem is the equation exists sort of, or it should exist as the sort of consequence of an argument that already shows that such a thing would be exponential, right? Does that make sense? Like an equation is actually just like a model of the world that we have to create using
yeah, so I
assumptions.
guess I shouldn't have
It
used the
doesn't
equation. Yeah.
validate
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't validate our underlying assumptions like it would be exponential in the first place, which this equation kind of uses, right? By
I guess
using an
it's
exponential
modeling
growth
it's
rate.
modeling the exponential growth, and then it has the arguments for
Yeah.
why for the cases where one could get to exponential growth, which is like I think it's on page. I mean, if you look at, I mean, it's mostly this chapter like the kinetics of an intelligence. It's kinetics of an intelligence explosion,
Mhm.
and I guess I mean there are different models like Figure 7, for example. I mean they have different takeoff scenarios, so fast, slow, moderate. But I mean, if we want to create a model of it, then we have to like. Then I just saying there's two factors we have to think about. One of which is
Okay.
how the optimization power is actually being like the total optimization power from the system, like, and that could be. I mean, in their definition, it's like either the system, the world, or uh, I mean, they have the on they have the system, the project, and the world. Like, whether like when the seeds AI starts out, it has limited cognitive capabilities. Therefore, the system optimization is small. But what about the project and the world? There are cases in which a single project has more relevant capability than the rest of the world combined. The Manhattan Project, for example, brought a very large fraction of the world's best physicists to Los Alamos to work on the atomic bomb. More commonly, any one project contains only a small fraction of the world's relevant research capability. But even when the outside world has a greater total amount of research capability than one project, the project may nevertheless exceed the world, since much of the outside world capability is not to be focused on the particular system in question. But then they're just saying, so like that's so they're saying the optimization power is equal to the system plus the project plus the world, right? But
Well,
I mean
That
that's
made
why are
zero
we using
sense,
these
but okay.
mathematical relations, right? Like, aren't we
but what I'm saying
assuming?
is that but the point is that there's as the system's capabilities grow, there may come a point at which the optimization power generated by the system itself starts to dominate the optimization power applied from outside.
Mhm.
The crossover is significant because beyond this point, further improvement to the system's capabilities contribute strongly to the increasing the total optimization power applied to improving the system. We thereby enter a regime of strong recursive self-improvement. So if we're just thinking about the optimization power, and maybe the recalcitrance is a constant, which is recalcitrance is not constant. Usually, it's gonna hit limits and it's gonna have these all other problems. But I guess I'm just saying that yeah, when like we have to consider that there might be a point where it crosses over where the system itself is optimizing more than the project in the world. And at that point, it's
Mhm.
recursive self-improvement. That's just like the mathematical condition that it's saying, or not. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
yeah.
there definitely exists at that theoretical point, but there's no guarantee that that theoretical point exists. I didn't phrase that correctly. Like we can imagine that point, but there's no guarantee that like it'll happen.
I mean, yeah. I mean, nothing is guaranteed to happen. I mean, I guess it's. I guess there. I mean, the argument from the book though is that it's not. They're not guaranteeing that it's going to happen within like even 10 years or 20 years or 100 years. They're just saying, they're not saying it will even happen, but they're saying if it does, it might happen, or that if it does happen, then these are the consequences.
I'm confused as to why we are assuming it will happen.
We didn't. We know we didn't. I just said if it does happen, then these are the consequences. But oh, you're confused of
Okay.
why we are in our conversation, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess. I mean, I think. Why do we? I guess the. I mean, why is it important to assume that it
No, I
does?
think like
Why is it important
or
to
like my
consider the
original question
possibility?
was like how would it actually exponentially improve? Because like as I understand it, it's not like real humans in the real world come up with algorithms exponentially faster. Like our ability to come up with the algorithms don't become better exponentially. Hardware does become better exponentially, but that will have a limit, likely in the near future.
Yeah, so that's like the limits on there is like the recalcitrance, but there's also the optimization power. So it's like
But
how
like, what is the optimization power in the real world? Like, what's the
like it could
mechanism
be
of
like it's the
optimization power?
combination of like all the factors that could influence the rate of. Okay, I'm just that's circular definition, but let's say what it is in the real world. Let's try to think about that. Like, what do you think,
Well, the
Leo?
optimization in the real world is just the work of all the mathematicians towards producing better algorithms. And I think Adarsh's contention is that that isn't, uh, exponential in the real world.
I think that might be because the recalcitrance is also.
Is also exponential.
I mean, because the I mean, okay, we have to think about what actually that means for it. Well, the recalcitrance is obviously not constant in the real world, right? It's like it's kind of depends on like different factors of how easy it is, how like a given like in the real world it probably shapes like it's like a S curve or whatever on some optimizations. The how the how the recalcitrance or how the
In the real world, almost everything is an S curve. I haven't seen any that like true exponentials don't really exist.
I mean I guess the optimization power it's like I mean the recalcitrance it's saying that it will it'll operate as an S curve sometimes based and like that the recalcitrance is like it's like a very not complex but like a very I mean in the real world these functions are not nice functions they're not constant they're not but
I
you
mean, if
know
this exists as an S curve, wouldn't that necessarily mean that there is no intelligence explosion?
if the I mean if the
Or maybe there's an
well
initial
I mean the
intelligence
intelligent
explosion, but it
explosion it could
plateaus.
occur like there could still be an intelligent explosion for like the part of the takeoff duration until it levels off but it could all I mean it could still be a takeoff in an S curve. Like if you look on page 63, so it's important to distinguish between these questions. Will a takeoff occur, and if so, when? If and when a takeoff does occur, how steep will it be? One might hold, for example, that'll be a very long time before takeoff occurs, but that when it does occur, it will proceed very quickly. Another relevant question is how large a fraction of the world economy will participate in the takeoff?
We look at AI now, it seems like an extremely large freaking fraction because we're not even close to super intelligence, but it's a decent amount of the American economy is tied up in the data centers. Or economic growth rather than economy, but yeah.
So you're saying there's a large amount of optimization power on it right now, and
I
it's not
mean,
necessarily
at least
producing
from
it's
like
not necessarily producing exponential results. So the
for
optimization, so
sure,
it's
right? Because like the data centers are a decent amount of like everything that's driving GDP growth right now.
I don't know if that's true. Well, I mean, it's true of
it
like
also could be the
stock growth, but that's more because of speculation than actual like.
I think it's like true even on like I think like
I mean, it depends on
investments
what
grow.
the DT is as well, right? The change in
Yeah,
time. So it could be. I mean, it's only been like how many years since maybe 5 years since a lot of the since there's been a lot of investment in AI. It doesn't. And we don't know how steep it'll be over the next 30 or so.
I think it's gonna be pretty steep. Like the data center investments are not in any way trivial. Like all the data center companies are all the most profitable companies in the world. Okay, like not the ones making the data centers, but definitely like the ones using the data centers are all the biggest companies in the world.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I mean, Nvidia, I mean, exponential growth, right?
The economy is exponential growth, which I've always found hilarious because there's no way that's sustainable. But whatever, I guess.
it's
Humans be
it's been
humans.
happening for a few hundred years.
But it's just no way that it
It's
lasts
always
forever.
helpful to remember that like humanity basically exists in a permanent state of actual insanity in comparison to like its natural state.
Yeah, or like, yeah, I mean, or just
Like, we think the last like the last 2 years with Nvidia is insane. Actually, like try the last 10,000 since humans have quit hunting and gathering, bro.
I feel like the 10,000 haven't been that insane. Like, it's only industrial revolution afterwards that we have exponential growth.
Well, that's just because you're like totally used to like human civilization and stuff and find it like completely normal and natural for some reason.
yeah, no, it's exponential growth like since the agricultural revolution, right?
I don't think that's the case. I don't know.
I'm not saying that it's exponential growth since the agricultural revolution, but to like, I'm just saying that to box
From like
Or
human.
not
society
since, but
changes perspective, yeah, I agree with Liam on that. Like,
Yeah,
society hasn't been like very constant since at least the agricultural revolution.
yeah,
that is
like,
like a
But like the
reason.
and then
agricultural
That's a
the,
reason.
revolution
That is a
lasted
reason for believing
thousands of
that like
years.
why. That is kind of a reason for believing like that maybe superintelligence could emerge because like you don't think that people think okay I've been here for like what I've been here for 22 years and like stuff has not changed that much but like but if you think of like they're not saying that it's going to happen in like the next 20 years which given the level of investment maybe it would but I mean or the level of optimization power but like over 200 years or like given how much has changed since like the rate of change is exponential already so I mean
But like the rate of change can't be exponential forever. It just has been for like since industrial revolution.
but I mean what if the rate of change is exponential in terms of like okay well I mean you
I
said
think a
the
physicist
number
had a
of
very good
the number of resources are limited is what you're saying.
yeah, like if a physicist had a very good argument for this where like if like the economy is exponential forever, like in another 1,000 years, every atom has to produce like $1 trillion worth of value or something, which is not possible.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we sort of miss when we look at like strict economic figures, and I kind of yeah, got on off the wrong foot with the book for this. This is another sort of return to the first few chapters, but I think economic statistics really are not indicative at all of like physical production of humanity or the productive output of humanity. Uh, because economic output, to a large extent, includes extremely subjectively valued materials such as like music albums and art and whatnot. And certainly, I'm a human, so I value these greatly, and I would want these included in like real economic valuations in terms of like
Because people want that
because it
as
is.
people want people to produce those so
Yeah, but it's certainly not like an economic like if we're to look at economics as say like a Soviet commissar would have as like how much steel is produced or whatever, or like the raw outputs of a country. Certainly, I think that it would be it's not exactly correct to say that like economic expansion which correlates directly to control over the universe or whatever is exponential. Does that make
So that
sense?
was a very good book about this I was reading
Hmm.
very recently about how like the actual measure of economic output you can do it based on like joules and energy versus like money, right?
Hmm.
And you had the economic analysis of like since we started the agricultural revolution where we started like getting energy externally from the sun through the plants and then using that energy as our productivity, you can track human energy transfer and consumption across history and then see how that's exponential, and that was not very exponential.
Hmm. Like I don't think certainly I think that like GDP growth is better than like total energy usage for typical economic statistical usage, right? Because what
Mm-hmm.
we're like it tracks what humans are sort of concernful for, to borrow the Heidegger term, right? Like humans are actually concernful over music, and so we want statistics that represent like how many albums get sold or whatever. But certainly that's not actually impactful towards like we can put out a billion albums tomorrow, and it's not going to like increase the share of the universe we've taken over.
The thing that does
But also,
concern me though is that we produce a billion albums in a world that still has like starvation and hunger and like all sorts of like actual material needs.
Okay, this is deviating
that's
far
a bit
from
of a
the AI
deviation. But
thing.
I think like I mean, the point is not that it's going to be unlimited economic growth from the superintelligence. The point is
Mhm.
that it's going to be a growth in intelligence that is like exponential, or no, or that is exponential for a period of time, or rapid takeoff, or even not even a rapid takeoff. It's just they're different takeoff scenarios, but you know that it will that there like if there was a recursive self-improving thing, then it would you know might it would have some of these consequences if it was super intelligent. If we take, I mean,
Mhm.
it takes these assumptions and like kind of says if I'm not saying that this is going to be for sure going to happen, but it's a potential case that is dangerous. So that's mostly I think how I took the book. Like I don't see it as a necessary future, but it's I mean it seems more to me it seems more likely um like when I read it a while ago, because like just of how AI has progressed recently, like and how much investments, how much optimization power is going into it. It seems more likely it'll happen sooner, but you can't say for sure when it's gonna like whether it will or not. But it's just saying that this is a people should at least be concerned about this because it is a possible war. It is a possible like I mean I mean people should also concerned about nuclear war and like other potential risks, but it is a
I
risk.
feel like nuclear risk is way more possible than this, but I agree that this is possible too, and like someone should be trying to prevent it.
Mhm. I mean, I think it's probably not as difficult to. This is what I was talking about earlier with the psychology thing. I don't think it's as difficult to prevent as the book is presenting. Like, I don't think a reasonable human who is specifically like instructed in ways to be careful around like this thing breaching into the internet or whatever. I don't think a reasonable human would have a hard time just like looking at all the packet transfers and making sure that none of them are malicious and making sure that like it's not actually accessing the internet or whatever. I don't think that would be too hard, and I don't think they would be too psychologically
But
compromised no
like
matter what.
but like can't a human like kind of like what if it's just a bad acting human, but it becomes
Mhm.
and it's trying to foster a super intelligence or something that's evil, like you know
Okay, I mean, all of these problems have sort of technical solutions. Admittedly, like I don't know, it becomes this. I guess it does become like a similar class of problem as like making sure that nuclear bombs go off. But it's like how in some nuclear launch scenarios, several people have to press a button, and that would be the same as like if several people were responsible for monitoring this AI thing. In which case, no
yeah I mean
single bad actor could take it over.
Yeah, I agree with Leo that like I don't actually think it's very hard to stop a super intelligence from like accessing the
Like it's
internet.
non-trivial, but
but
it's
like I mean it's
not
like
impossible.
that's kind of like saying okay well I think that like if it was actually super intelligent, which obviously it's not today in many
Mhm.
ways, like it's like saying okay as a monkey I think it's like you can stop a human from like doing something and that they want to do.
I feel like if the monkeys had me in a cage and then like they knew how to unlock lock stuff, I feel like yeah, the monkeys
But
could
like
keep me in
you
a
don't think
cage
that the human
forever.
Yeah,
could like
monkeys are very smart. Like
Yeah.
I think the monkeys would pull that off. Yeah,
you don't think that a
just
monkey
keeping a human confined.
they would just they would like you don't think that you could like somehow I mean the
I feel like
monkeys I mean
humans are
it's not a perfect
powerful.
example because the monkey might just like leave you and not do anything. I mean the monkey doesn't is not going to like check on you and doesn't know how to
Do you think you'd be
I
able
don't
to
think
like
the
perfectly
monkey could
manipulate this monkey into
I don't
like
think the
letting you
monkey could even
act?
construct a cage though. So it's a bad example, right? monkey couldn't construct a cage to keep a human.
Well, but we already can construct a cage that we know will
Yeah.
keep us like
No, we don't know that.
extremely
We
intelligent.
don't know that it would. We don't know
Well,
that it
We
would
can
keep
like
it's
this
like a
keep the
computer. It's like a
computer from
box.
not interacting with the internet. This is
Yeah, like
like
don't
not
plug it in.
complicated.
Like simple as.
Don't plug it in. I mean, but people are actively trying to create this type of thing.
Make sure they don't plug it in.
That's why it's
Like
risk.
I
That's why it's
don't.
scary because like you don't, it's like
Somebody might connect a super intelligence to the
somebody's gonna do
internet.
it. Like,
It's gonna make a fidelity account and make us all fools.
I mean, they already are like doing. They already have it. They already have a lot of AIs already connected to the internet doing stuff. Like, it
I
doesn't.
feel like even
It's
if
not
it
like
is connected to the internet,
I'm just
it's
saying.
not like it's that hard to turn off an AI. Like
I mean, what if it like
it's not even that
duplicates
hard to
itself?
turn
What if it
off the
duplicates
entire
itself? I mean,
internet.
you think you could turn off the entire internet or turn off Google? If you think you could turn off
You
Google,
can
like,
turn off the entire internet. I mean, if America wanted to, it could turn off the entire internet.
do you think it could turn off Google though? Like, you think like I thought
If
about this.
America
I remember
wanted to,
thinking about
yeah,
this. I
America
remember
can
thinking
turn
about this
off
when
Google.
when I first read the book. I was like, if I wanted to, could I like? I mean, obviously I can't, but like
Like
the
the
power of
state
Google,
can
the
or
power of Google is
just
so
turn
great.
off the internet if it wanted to. Like there are only so many data.
You think they could though? Like the
I feel
internet?
like just make sure the missiles are not connected to the internet, and then you blast a few data centers. Yeah, you're done.
I mean, I just think it is interesting to consider the control problem in this case. You know,
I agree. It's interesting. I agree with Liam on that. This is not particularly harder than like nuclear bombs. In fact, I would be way more worried about like nuclear bombs or climate change or any of the other apocalypse scenarios that already
Yeah,
exist.
there are famously like many cases where we came very close to nuclear disaster, such as, I mean, the several cases in which like planes carrying nuclear bombs like went down and miraculously the bombs didn't detonate because of their clever
Broken arrows.
design.
I love reading about those.
Yeah, I mean, there's already like a lot of examples of it getting close with nuclear weapons, and we can imagine designing similar countermeasures for the
but
AI thing.
that doesn't mean that the AI is like any safer or could be even, you know, that doesn't mean that it's like not. That doesn't mean that it's any safer, right?
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, we're comparing it to nuclear bombs here, right?
Yeah, I mean it does. I mean I mean I
It's
do
not a
think
good sign.
no. I think that is what they're trying. That's the thing they're trying to prompt with this book. That he's an existential risk philosopher, or a,
Mhm.
as he puts it, a. I don't know how he puts it. Let me see. He's a. I mean, global catastrophic risks professor or philosopher.
Mhm. I just think a lot of the sort of natural solutions to this are much more robust than is portrayed in the book, such as like the psychological resilience of humans to AI, or
But it could
the
just. I mean, I guess there's all. I mean, yeah. I just think it could be the case that it is like a. I mean, it could. I mean, if we take the analogy to like a monkey to a human, it is
Mhm.
like it does. I mean, yeah. There's.
Monkeys are pretty psychologically resistant to humans. Funnily
Do you
enough.
think you'd be able to like fight a monkey? Like, do you think you'd be able to like fist fight it and then win? I mean,
What
there are
I'm saying is that
certainly ways.
the conditions of like. I guess like yeah. I mean, I mean, yeah. If the world was all monkeys and they're trying to kill me, you know, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
like if the world is just full of monkeys and they're all like against me, but the point is that it might be so smart that it doesn't even like humans don't even take it into account what it's doing, and then until it like
I'm more worried about that. Or like we have an AI sovereign, and it's just like so good, we just give up the government to it, and then we just like and live a life of like hedonism. That's way scarier than like
but
AI doomsday scenarios.
but I mean that is like an AI doomsday scenario because it's like it's how do you know it's aligned? So you still have to if I mean the only case in which it would not kill off humans in that case is if it's aligned. Like if you give up
I feel
control to
like
some.
you just gotta make sure there's some humans with bombs somewhere so you can blow up the data center. That's all you
I don't
really
know. I
need.
disagree with the notion that an all unaligned AI.
Oh, hello. Oh, I got lost you
Yeah,
there.
hello.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that even assuming the case where like a super intelligence exists and then like it is misaligned in some extreme goal that it follows to the end, I think there's still a case where humans broadly survive.
Yeah,
Like
I mean that's like
one,
that's also the 2027 thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, humans might survive for a while, but it's gonna like be just focused on like hyper entertainment or like, and then it's eventually gonna wipe out humans once it needs its resources. But like,
I disagree. I think I mean we can see this with if we're to use the same metaphor of humans being essentially in a super intelligence explosion in comparison to the natural world, much of the natural world still exists. Like it's
right,
not to
yeah.
say that humans haven't like ravaged it to a large extent, but it's like a lot of animals like still exist.
I mean, that is like kind of the I listened to the like Jürgen Schmidhuber. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure though. His like podcast or his Lex Women podcast. He said, yeah, like, yeah, I think super intelligent AI just wouldn't care about humans. It would just go like, you've colonized the universe, but it wouldn't care about humans. But still, that
Mhm.
scenario
Like
is kind of
there
like,
isn't a way for it to even colonize the universe, right? How would it like there are no habitable planets anywhere nearby.
as humans think with our limited minds, could be von Neumann probe, and I don't know.
I feel like if one Neumann
Eventually
probes
it
were
finds.
easy to
Eventually it
make, the
finds.
galaxy would have been colonized already. I think
I
the
mean, maybe
fact
they're
that
not
it
easy. They
isn't
might not be easy to make. They might be operated. They may not have to be operated by a super intelligence inside that, like, is like doing some crazy stuff, and then like, you know, sends off like, maybe it sends off a million of them, and then one of them finds a habitable planet like Earth, and then but it just needs all. That's all it needs to be able to construct the rest of them. I mean, I'm just
and I
saying.
feel like the space is like a scam if you ask me. I feel like there isn't anything in space. It's just a marketing scheme.
I don't know about
I
that,
think
dude.
in the novel Accelerando, which I mentioned previously, some humans were like ignored by the. In that case, they didn't have an AI, like an intelligent singularity, but they had a technological singularity, which the book, like it's not the subject of the book, but I think there is a parallel that, like, in that hypothetical, some humans were left on Earth and didn't take part in like the sort of new universe expansive human existence, and because everyone smart had left Earth, maybe this is a little satirical to be taken as a serious example, but because everyone sort of smart left Earth, or everyone like particularly interested in this kind of technology, the people of Earth returned to like a medieval level existence and sort of just continued human society uninterrupted.
I mean, yeah, it could be the case, but I mean, you can't. I mean, it won't be the case. It's either the case that there's exponential growth continued, or there's like, or like we go
Yeah,
back to some.
I don't think exponential growth is real. I feel like just like a
I'm just saying.
weird
I'm just saying
quirk
that
of
those
when
are
we were
two. I mean,
born.
I'm saying either it continues or it doesn't, and like
Hmm.
it has to. I mean, it's might be might decay after if in the case it doesn't, but people are certainly trying to go to space and trying to create AI and all these other things about
I feel like AI makes sense. I think space is just like a pipe dream. Like there is no way to go to space. Like practically speaking.
I mean, if you created some super efficient von Neumann probe and send out like a million of them,
But like there isn't a way to make one is the whole problem.
there's not. I mean, what if it had a super intelligence
Probably.
inside? I mean, this is another science fiction book of like, what
Yeah,
if?
so like you have to invent AI before, and even if you did, like it doesn't materially benefit humans in any sense.
I'm just saying you could colonize the universe and like, I mean, it could if you say create a von Neumann probe and then like send it out into the universe, it finds a habitable planet, and then it has a then there are enough constructs enough to be able to relay the message back to Earth, and then you know I mean,
But like
I guess
the
they
thing
will.
is like,
I guess you could like figure out if there's a habitable planet, and then like you could
there
somehow,
isn't
and then
really.
you could somehow use the resources to like um genetically reconstruct humans there or something.
I guess it's like possible, but like this is the kind of thing that'll take like millennia to do. It's not like it's not. It's gonna be like a 100,000 year project. It's not gonna be like a near future project.
I know that's not gonna be near future. I mean, yeah, it's a different type of thing, but it's kind
Yeah,
of
that's what
it's
what
kind
I
of
mean is
irrelevant
like
to the
Elon
risk.
Musk when he says he's gonna put a colony on Mars is full of shit. Is what I'm saying.
Mm.
I mean, that's a very specific statement. I was not referring to that. So
Yeah, I'm saying like people who tell you there's gonna be like stuff to do in space in your lifetime are full of shit. The person who tells you there will be a space, like we will mine asteroids, like yeah, maybe in 1,000 years, okay, maybe you'll mine asteroids sooner than that, but you're not colonizing any planet anywhere
I
like
think that
for a
I think we'll
superintelligence
get
hundreds of
asteroid
generations.
mining within 1,000 years. I don't think that
I
that's
think we'll
too
get asteroid
ridiculous.
mining. That was a bad example, but I don't think you're
Yeah,
colonizing anything within 1,000 years.
sure. I mean, all you need for like asteroid mining is being able to. Yeah, I mean, it would be like complex robotics, but this is crackable within 1,000 years, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
Robotics. I think you could like mine an asteroid within 1,000 years. You're not colonizing anything for like a
yeah, I
thousand
mean,
years.
I
No way.
think like
yeah,
for colonizing, you would probably need like von Neumann probes plus like biological like biocomputer like bio sorry not biocomputers but 3D bio 3D
cloning.
printer bio 3D printers.
Oh, that's gonna be like way harder than cloning.
Yeah,
I mean, as discussed in the book, this is
or like
also
or
in
a way
the
to like
early part of the
I mean I
book.
don't think you could genetically like I mean maybe you could preserve embryos for that whole time, but I don't think I mean you would have to create the simplest mechanism that cr- turns into a human, which would probably just be like the human you have to have the human genome and like I don't know some like embryos and stuff to be able to 3D print those, but that's obviously very hard. But
I don't think a mechanical process like 3D printing would be involved. I mean, it would be too like precise of work, right?
I mean, it's like the analogy of 3D printing, but it's not like
True.
actually 3D printing, but it'd be way
Yeah,
harder.
it would be some other. Yeah.
It would be,
Bioprinting.
bioprinting, yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, yeah, I don't I mean, it would be you have to solve a lot more problems before that. So, cuz I mean,
The thing is, like, by the time you get to bioprinting, why would you even want to go to another planet? I feel like by the time you get those places, it's already heaven on
maybe
earth.
the AI is like exponential and then it can create all these technologies at a very rapid pace.
Yeah, I feel like part of the thing that like by the time the kinds of technologies exist that let you colonize other planets, you don't need to do shit. Almost every problem that is materially relevant to humans has been solved
Yeah,
already.
and at that point,
Mm.
why are they not, already simulating minds?
Yeah, I
I,
mean, I feel
I,
like if we're at the point where like we can biologically make like designer humans, I mean that's like that's a sort of like Nietzschean Overman territory where our morals will like no longer be sensible or apply, right? Like if we can just say, oh, these people
yeah,
actually
that's
believe
also
X, Y,
true.
Z arbitrarily,
So, but
like
but
okay.
that's like, I think that yeah, I mean that's why, I mean like that. I think that AI is the Overman of Nietzsche.
Okay. Well, then you shouldn't be concerned at all about the doom scenario because that would be a good thing if this thing replaces humanity.
I never said it was good. I never said it was good. That the Overman is good.
Okay. Okay.
But I did think that was the same. Did think it is similar
I guess
to
like good is
AI.
the wrong word there.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I think yeah, it would become. I mean, if it was, it would become more powerful.
Mhm.
The Overman was like, if it was AI, it would become more powerful and stuff like that. In Nietzsche's terms, right?
I guess. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
power is his like thing, right?
as established earlier, because of the potential inability for it to get out of a box, we might still have to consider whether exponential increases of intelligence would even like this is to me the series of like propositions. I don't know if I should like make a diagram out of this, but like the series of propositions we have in contention, right? It's
All
that
right, you wanna share your
uh,
screen?
sure I could share something.
All right.
I'm gonna share like core paint or something like that.
At least use like
New
a tech. At
canvas.
least don't be like, writing it with your. Don't be like writing out drawing the words. You gotta like. I mean, you could do that if you want, but it might.
Yeah, I'm drawing the words.
All right, dude. All right.
Let's
No,
go.
I'll use
You might
text.
as well use text.
Whatever. I'll draw the words. I'll
No,
draw the
use
words.
text. Use text. Just
Uh,
if you.
so
All right,
Draw the
our
whatever. All right.
first,
words.
It's
our
well, do
first.
what you want. Do what you want. It's
So our first proposition is like what? Um, we have like exponential increases in
okay,
like AI intelligence.
bro. You could just be using
This is
text, right?
like way better handwriting than if I was not using a mouse.
But it's
And so this is like
all right. Yeah.
so whether there will be exponential increases, we already in our group at least have disagreement on, and then we're saying that this leads necessarily to a very powerful AI. And that this very powerful AI would necessarily lead to like, what was our next step? Space exploration?
I mean,
Uh,
you said the Overman or whatever, which is like a Overman is like powerful. It's just more powerful than humans.
I don't think that's necessarily true. That it's just more powerful than humans.
Something that
I think it's also that it was trying to escape the alignment problem is like a thing. Where like I think we can like very easily stop superintelligence from escaping, even if you make it. But that was another point of disagreement for sure.
okay. So whether it
Well,
becomes
yeah, that
misaligned,
that's
whether it's aligned or not, aligned.
actually yeah. We really just have like these two things. So the 2 points of disagreement we've had so far is whether this is true or whether we can assume this relation, right?
Well, power. Do you
This
assume powerful here is like you know? Do you assume that powerful means that it's misaligned? Because if it's
uh,
like powerful
I'm
means
not
that
assuming that it's misaligned. I think
that
honestly,
also
like
that's
if we
another
had an aligned AI, yeah, go ahead.
because I think like it does matter whether. I mean, I guess if it's aligned, does it is it powerful or not? Yeah, that's what I mean. If it's a if you
Okay. So far as this is relevant, or actually, I'm going to say that like I think the align whether an AI is aligned or not is irrelevant to whether it can become powerful in this sense. What we mean by powerful is it possesses a lot of like control over area and people in the real world. I think that even if there was a scenario, like okay, let's imagine for a second the like hypothetical scenario where humanity has an aligned AI. How would we know, right? It would be very difficult to distinguish an aligned AI versus our already existing hypothetical misaligned AI that is just pretending for now. So I think even in the case of an aligned AI, we would still try to keep it restricted, and therefore we would still use the boxing methods. And I think it would still try to escape the boxing methods if it was totally aligned.
Why would it try to
that is the kind
escape
of
boxing if it
scenario
was
that is kind of
aligned?
the AI 2027 scenario where they have
Hmm.
like these two scenarios like slowdown versus race where China races or they kind of it becomes aligned but humans don't know it but it still kind of escapes. Both cases escapes, but in one of the cases it like it eventually kills off humans and eventually like leads them to just addiction to like with you know it just has its own goals to colonize and stuff, but otherwise it wants human flourishing and it like keeps humans in a loop and stuff.
I mean, either way, since we both read Nietzsche, we all know that like whether it's aligned or not, it's going to try to become very powerful, right? Like no matter what its goal is, this is kind of the convergent hypothesis as Bostrom laid it out.
Okay, so
So
yeah, I
I
mean
don't
aligned.
think alignment or not is relevant here.
But it was I mean why is it not relevant? I mean, it's
because
relevant to
we're
humans.
going to be doing it's relevant to like human outcomes, but in terms of human behavior, it wouldn't change at all.
Well, I mean, a lot of humans don't even consider whether. I mean, a lot of humans might not be involved with the control problem and that are developing the AI because they don't understand it or they don't think about it. It's kind of the problem that Bostrom's getting at, right? Which has the human outcomes in mind, even if they don't know, even if they lose the power, they they still have the agent acting on their behalf in some sense.
Are we in a disagreement? Am I misunderstanding this?
I mean, I guess yeah. I guess you're saying that. Uh, you're just saying that the humans should act the same way, regardless of
Yeah,
whether
humans should act the same way. Yeah.
regardless of whether they think it's going to become regardless of whether they think it's misaligned or aligned. They're going to act the
Yeah,
same
because by definition, like if we're incapable of telling a misaligned AI that's pretending, if we're incapable because that an AI would be super intelligent, then in neither case, even if it were aligned or if it weren't aligned and just pretending, it would act the exact same, right? We wouldn't be able to differentiate its behavior.
way. I mean, the hope is that it's not the hope is that you have to put these things in place before it exponentially improves
Mhm.
in order for it to be aligned or not, and to actually be aligned or not in the first place.
Uh,
I don't know if we're in different
I don't know
disagreement about that.
if boxing is like sufficient, we could actually just give it another go. Like if whatever containment we come up with for super intelligent intelligence is sufficient, which is precisely like the arrow I drew, then like, oh, okay, this one turned out evil. We just turn it off and go to the next one. Like, would be a sufficient answer. The fact that like we can't figure out if it turns evil is like the main problem, and which is why we would have to keep it contained forever, regardless.
But the actual like practical implementation of how does it stay contained, or like
Mhm.
how do we know that, because we can't, I mean, it's impossible to just keep something contained forever, but I mean, or like it can, if it's really misaligned, then it might just try to escape containment, so in any way it can, even if it's not, even if it's in an indirect way.
I think it would try to escape containment even if it were aligned.
It depends on how it's aligned, right?
Sure. But any like okay, imagine that you kept a person imprisoned and they could easily escape, but they choose not to because they're a good person or whatever. But then they see somebody outside who's like being murdered, but they know they could stop it if they simply broke out. I think it would be reasonable for a good person in that case to break out, right? Like, or that wouldn't be like something they wouldn't consider. Does that make sense? And I think in the same way, an AI that could maximally improve human life with the goal of maximally improving human life would find this suspicion that humans have of it like trivial. Like if it simply got out, it could show the humans.
I think it's possible that there is a aligned AI that does not try to escape. I think that's possible.
What would be its reasoning for like a super intelligent AI that knew it could greatly improve human life
I don't know.
and
It's like a
wants to greatly
deontological
improve it?
AI. It's like humans don't want to be saved, so for their own peace of mind, it's better for me to not try to escape.
I don't know if that makes sense to me. Like,
I'm saying it's possible.
I
not
mean, you
saying
don't
that's
know. I
gonna
mean,
be the
how do you know
probable AI.
what exactly the super intelligent AI would want? I mean, I
sure,
guess,
but
how would it be aligned? I mean, we have to go back
listen,
to the control problem for this, I think.
yeah, I mean to the extent that we're saying that it's aligned, right? Like aligned, I'm assuming like, you know, what we want is like the general things that humans want, right? And
I
we
mean
think that
that's,
dying
but
is
yeah, I mean that's
there are
also
many
a,
components in the world that are we consider very bad and we want to stop, right?
well,
Alignment.
I think that goes on to the next that will go on to the chapters, good segue into the chapters for next reading, 11 through 15,
Oh, sure.
uh because it talks about, well, acquiring values. How does the system acquire values? How does the system have the indirect normativity? Uh, how does the strategic picture? Those are the next chapters. I think, but I think there's a lot. They talk about more about these type of problems with, like, how does the system become aligned, or what does it even mean
Sure.
for a system to become aligned? Because
That's fair. We could talk about that more next time then.
we have the control problem here with the incentive methods, these general like motivation selection methods as well, um, which can be, which I mean are related too. So if we want to discuss those a bit, we can too. But also, I think
Yeah.
the value, how it learns the values and stuff is like gonna be more in the next chapters, which is also gonna be another interesting part of the discussion, I think. Yeah. So I mean, the control problem is still. I mean, they lay it out a lot in the control problem section. Uh, so we couldn't go back to that for a bit, but I think the next chapters will also be very informative about this stuff. But
Hmm. I think that
I think their point too is that the boxing methods are, you know, they're not enough to necessarily contain every type of super intelligence that could exist. Like sovereigns, for example, in the chapter 10, they talk about sovereigns, which are like things that you just create on behalf of, in some general operation way, on behalf of humans. That's the one type of super intelligence. I mean, the oracle type, which is like the current type, is just like, it's obviously it's boxed. It's a question answer system. It's boxed, but
mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess I didn't read chapter 10, but to me, like, so far as we just use oracles, it seems like boxing and tripwires would be an effective solution. I don't think the incentive method would work at all, and I think it's almost shown by the example it uses of like a charitable organization, given how many charitable organizations have sort of been taken over by enemies of its like true aims.
yeah, I guess I mean it
But
does
I think
say,
like,
there's another thing that it does say, which is that on the end of chapter 10, it says like further research would be needed to determine which type of system would be safest. The answer
mhm,
might depend on the conditions under which the AI would be deployed. The Oracle cast is obviously attractive from a safety standpoint, since it would allow both capability control methods and motivation selection methods to be applied. It might thus seem to simply dominate the sovereign case, which would only allow motivation selection methods. However, an oracle could place a lot of power into the hands of its operator, who might be corrupted or apply the power unwisely, whereas a sovereign would offer some protection against these hazards. The safety ranking is therefore not so easily determined.
mhm.
A genie can be
That sounds a little suspicious to me, saying that like if we were to trust the decisions of a computer over the decisions of a human person.
well, I mean, it's a super intelligence, so that's why I think, yeah, I mean, it is. I guess, yeah, I mean, they're
But
just
like,
saying
what if
that.
the super?
I guess they're saying that, yeah, if you would, but if the human could really wield the super intelligence to its, you know, to its like whatever goals it has, then it would all then humans are very misaligned in terms of general human interest, right? Or human, like
Mhm.
individual humans, I guess.
maybe this like comes up later, but I feel like there's a general problem with the concept of alignment in the first place. Just because it assumes like there is an actually existing sort of moral framework in which all humans like live and then can make moral judgments
No,
from.
I don't think it is. I mean, I don't know if it assumes that, but let's talk about control.
Well, then,
It's I guess that's why it's a control problem rather than a alignment.
in what way can we say an AI is aligned or not if we don't believe that? Like on which criteria can we judge whether an AI is aligned or not if we don't believe that there are acceptable and not acceptable outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to go on like a I mean, like a consequentialist rather than. I mean, you have to have a moral frame, like a. But that's kind of what he's thinking about in the next chapters. I think
I
I'm
see.
pretty
Okay.
sure he goes into that in the next chapters in terms of like the last chapter I think um is like the essentially called crunch time,
Oh, really? Does he
which is
get to
like
my problem of?
philosophy. It's like I guess let's read. We can just peek ahead to chapter 15, the last one, which is like
Oh, we could leave that for when we will discuss that.
okay, yeah. But I think it's talking about how like there has to be philosophy done soon about what is even a
Mhm.
good value for humans, or
Yeah,
but I think
I feel like that's a much more interesting question than like how can we get AIs to align? You know, insofar as we don't even think humans align by whatever
so. Yeah, I think
naive definition we initially use.
that's gonna be chapter 12. That's gonna be a lot of the next stuff. I think
Yeah.
because they're really just laying out a lot of definitions here, but not actually saying exactly what you should do in terms of you
All
know.
right. Well, if that stuff's covered by later chapters, let's get back to the questions and see if we can.
Oh, you want to finish them out?
Yeah, let's finish these
All
out.
right, all right. I mean,
How likely
I mean,
is
I'm
the
mostly about
treacherous
I
turn?
mostly just wrote about like what do you think is like the most. I mean, we talked about a lot of these already, but I guess
Oh, true.
we didn't necessarily talk about like this one here, like
Could instrumental goals have moral status as well, even if the final goal is sound, such as to create mind crime?
that was a bit of a actually no, I don't know if that was a good one. But I mean, it's like I mean, it's kind of a self. It's you know a self. I mean, yes, because like for example, mind crime where they you know simulate a bunch of humans to like you know and treat them poorly just to serve the humans on the outside, and then if they have like if they're all simulated and like have minds or whatever, then that's just an example of that. I mean, these are pretty like surface level questions, I guess. But
As always, from that Black Mirror episode, simulated minds don't have real consciousness. I never believe that shit.
You
I
don't
well,
think
I
there
mean,
are
I guess I mean, yeah, I
others?
mean, Adarsh has always disagreed with this since Minds and Machines class. I think
I
right.
think the
We had a
yeah the
disagreement about this.
phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. I've always stood by the argument that like just because you can simulate the weather on a computer doesn't mean the computer is experiencing weather. These are two different things.
Mhm. I mean, I think a lot of people, maybe especially in the past, are convinced that like other people experience like a lesser form of consciousness than they themselves do. Like this was certainly an opinion held by many like upper classes historically about the lower classes, right? That they experience a less rich form of
That's
life.
true, but
So
I
I
feel
don't
like
think
this is a
it's.
completely different question because this is like it's not like a computer has a brain. It's just doing a bunch of math to guess what this mental states would be. It's not actual mental states.
Well, no,
What if
I'm
in the
saying
code?
this
What if
from like
in?
a.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying this from like a purely phenomenal perspective, right? Like the reason
Hmm.
that you think that another person is because like let's separate. I think like consciousness as a phenomenon is obviously like this is not to say like consciousness like actually like exists from a ontological perspective or whatever. Like I'm not like being a dualist here, but it's kind of obvious that like whatever consciousness is like made up of is not like a material thing, right? So
It might
the
be caused by it.
assumption.
It might be caused by it, but it's not.
Sure, it might be caused by it, but like the thing itself is not like you can't like break somebody's consciousness while not touching like their brain or whatever. Does that make sense? And like
True,
somebody's
true.
consciousness is not identical to their brain. Like you're not just like braining it up. all the time. So I think that like it's
Wait,
a
sorry.
sort
Can
of
you say that again?
phenomenal
So you say that again?
somebody's consciousness, the like experience of consciousness is not the exact same thing as the material existence of the brain.
Right.
Okay. So like obviously like we can say that the material brain like can cause in a sense the human consciousness. Um but I think like you know to the extent that we like have other people's consciousness, we experience it like sort of phenomenally from some extent, right? Like we have assumptions about how other people feel consciously. So I think in that same way, people will have these sort of assumptions about how like AI or simulated brains may feel.
I think I agree with
True.
that. Yeah, I agree with that. So,
And if they're sufficiently compelling others, then people might treat them as like other people.
Yeah, I agree that people might treat them as other people. I just don't think like a computer has consciousness. You just it just doesn't
but
really
I mean,
work
how
that
do you
way.
know that an? I mean, I guess that's. I mean, the point of that Leo's getting at is like, how do you know that other people have? In that case, you might as well say that other people don't have consciousness either.
I'm not saying
I
that.
don't
I'm just
know.
saying like
It's
I'm
my
just trying to
trust.
get at like the reason that people would think that in the first place,
But I
right?
mean, what's your reason for? Yeah. So, what's your reason for saying that you think that humans have consciousness? Other humans have consciousness, but you know, but computers wouldn't.
It's because like humans have like actual real brains where there's like actual like real things happening where like computer is predicting what that real stuff would do and then giving an answer that seems to be identical to what that would be. It's not actually like moving
What? How do
neurons
you how
around,
do you
it's
define
guessing.
actual real stuff?
Like a real neurons that we are really moving around
But
charges.
like, I guess I mean you have to think about what's the level of where is the level of consciousness emerging from the neurons? Like, is it in the systems level? Is it in the like the actual potential? You know, where does the
I
consciousness
feel like
start there?
if you like created like some kind of like neuromorphic computer that is that you're running your AI on, I'm willing to give that consciousness. I'm not willing to give like one human computer's consciousness. That's my stance.
Mm.
So it's the level of neurons then that you're.
If you connected actual electrical signals that work similar to how actual neurons work, and you set up that system, sure,
So what
fine,
if you
they're
just had
conscious. I'm
what if you
okay
had
with it.
you design an AI on the in silico and then you have it do some form of
Because
inference and
like
then you like
computers.
then you kind of like
Hmm?
instantiate that in a circuit, but it's not and it has electrical properties like neurons,
Yeah.
but it's still in silico because it's an electrical circuit,
I-
but it's doing
If it's
inference
in
like that.
I'm okay with if it's in silicon. I feel like the actual material doesn't matter, but like the structure does matter. It has to like be structurally like a neuron. It can't be a computer that simulates a neuron structure.
But like, I mean, I mean, it still brings up the question where like the hard problem of consciousness. Like, where is the not really the hard problem of consciousness? Maybe it is or it isn't. But
It kind of is
where
because
is
like
the?
you
But I
can't
mean, like,
prove.
yeah, like where does the like at what level of abstraction does the consciousness emerge from the inorganic parts, or sorry, the unconscious parts? Like where does the
I agree that that's not knowable,
because like
but
do you know
I
like is it like
personally
how do you know that it's not that it couldn't be in the
you
system level
can't know is the
properties
problem.
or like
No, I
There is
mean
no way to know.
I feel like the way to rephrase what I was saying is that like we're concernful over humans and we just aren't over artificial intelligence, and that is to some extent subjective, but we kind of have to accept that like subjectivity is part of human existence.
True, but like I feel like if you're simulating like an AI on a computer, I don't
Mhm.
think the computer is experiencing consciousness. Like it
Okay,
just doesn't seem.
but that's like your subjective take on the computer, right?
Yeah, but like you have to like have some reason why you think predicting a neural structure is the same thing as having a neural structure.
Well, I'm not saying anything. I'm not like saying the computers are conscious or not. in the same way that I'm
Okay.
not saying like other people are conscious or not. I'm just the reason that we come to that conclusion is that like we have this like concernful way of engaging with them where we the best way to do that is through our own mental like models, right?
I agree. This is like how like people do it when they're like before we learned how like brains and neurons work. This is how you
Well, we
assumed
still
all
don't know
people.
how consciousness emerges from them, so this is still how we do it.
But like we assume that a brain is what consciousness emerges from, right? If someone's brain wasn't working, they would not be conscious.
Mhm.
So
From
like
a strictly material perspective, though, like you don't know if other people are conscious just from the fact that their brains exist.
I agree. That's completely fair.
Mhm.
But we we know that the brain causes consciousness somehow. We don't know by what mechanism, but we know that because you have a brain is why you have a consciousness. Other people have brains. It is probably true that their brains cause consciousness, but a computer doesn't have a brain, so there is no reason to assume it has consciousness. Is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I'm just
I
saying
don't
what
think
I'm just
though
saying
that
what
that's
but we
why.
don't know what properties about the brain cause the consciousness. So we
Mhm.
can't say for sure that the computer that's mimicking the brain is not conscious if it gets it right on some level of abstraction that, for some reason make in the emergent properties makes it conscious. We don't know how the emergence of
Yeah,
consciousness.
I agree that like we can't know if a computer is conscious or not from like the input output behavior. That is true. Because like you can
Mhm.
always simulate a neural structure
Like
just
what if the
using
electrical like
one
property
human
yeah, I don't
structure.
know. What if the electrical
Like
emergence properties has consciousness somehow? I mean, it's like the ants. I mean, is it even just okay, yeah, I guess like, how do you know that the like where does the ant colony exist? Does it exist in you know, it doesn't exist in an individual ant. How does it where does it even exist? Does the ant colony exist? Does an ant colony exist when
mhm.
it's simulated? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I think about the consciousness thing, I think that it's we don't actually like to the extent that like Adarsh credited our understanding of other people as conscious to our understanding of them having like the same human brains as ours. I don't think that's actually like true. Uh,
Okay.
because for one, there are like significant neural differences between people. Like if somebody was acting in a significantly different way and you heard that, oh, it's because they have some genetic disease that made their brain form in a different way, you wouldn't like go back to first principles and wonder, oh, so is this person conscious? You would just assume that they were conscious, right?
Yeah, but I
Like
would
there,
assume like
but
even like
but
extremely different. As long as it's a neural structure, I'm assuming it's
but
conscious. I
like
think ants
but
are
there are some
conscious.
okay.
properties of it that would there
What
are some brains that would be unconscious. Like,
I'm saying that you're coming to the conclusion, and this is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that you're coming to the conclusion this way, but you're coming to it subjectively, right? Like it's
I
from
agree.
your own human
It's subjective
experience
for sure.
and
There's no
not like,
objective logic
oh,
for it.
we know that this person has a brain or not, like that they're conscious. So I think
I
like
agree.
you would have to accept that I think other people may eventually come to the similar subjective conclusion that like AI are indeed conscious or they are indeed other people. I think like a different example of this, maybe like to lower the stakes or whatever, is the fact that other people like there's an ongoing debate as to whether animals are like truly conscious, thoughtful things with cultures or whether they're sort of mechanistic things, right? Like whether animals have consciousness might also be a similar subject of debate, in my opinion. And an animal lover may subjectively say, "Oh, I know my cat like loves me or whatever," and has a similar experience to how a human would. But somebody who doesn't like animals or for some other reason thinks that animals may not be conscious may object to that. And these would both be like primarily subjective reasons rather than objective reasons for these objections, right?
I feel like the animal thing is more objective. Like people can study if like animals react emotionally to different situations. Like
but I mean, it's just psychologically. I mean, you don't know that. I mean, there's the phenomenal experience of. I mean, it's the hard problem of consciousness. Like, there's the phenomenal
Mhm.
experience, which you say you know the best because it's like what the phenomenal aspects of your life are, the experience of it.
Mhm.
People, but you can't.
I
But
don't
you
know.
also can't talk
I
about it. You
think
also can't talk about it in a functional way. that type of experience.
I don't know, man. To me personally, it's very clear. Animals are conscious. Computers are not conscious. It's subjective. I agree.
But like, how do
Everything
you
is
know? But
to
how do
some
you? I
extent
mean,
subjective.
what do you? I mean, you just say because they have biological. It's more likely because they have because you are, and probabilistically, like they have a similar brain to you, so
Okay,
human.
I'll make this
But
like the assumptions you have to make to assume other humans. You have to make some assumption, subjective assumption, to think that other humans are consciousness. You have to make a slightly different subjective assumption to get to animals are conscious. And you have to make a different another subject assumption to get to computers are conscious. And what I'm saying is there are three different steps of assumptions you have to make. Just because you assume other humans are conscious doesn't necessarily mean you have to assume computers are conscious.
No, I totally agree
I
with that.
agree. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
so I feel like computers are conscious is an assumption that like has to work on completely different sets of like what evidence you bring. Just because input output humans you can see and are conscious, that is a different argument from input outputs I see. Hence, the computers must be conscious.
Well, I don't think it's going to be like a different kind of argument from animals being conscious. I think it's going to be a different argument, but I think all the same subjective elements are still going to be there, right?
I guess,
I think
there's
I don't think
the
so.
claims of if um do we attribute other humans conscious because they claim it? Then but that can be correlated. Their claims of being conscious can be correlated to certain like mental states of their brain, like activations of neurons. So therefore, do we take it as those causing it, or that do we take it as the thing causing it, the phenomenal experience they're claiming causing itself? Because if the neurons cause it, then there's something about the neural structure that you know, or
I disagree.
neural system properties that would cause it.
I don't think that the reason that we believe that other humans are conscious is that they claim to be conscious. I think we just recognize that they're like other people like we are, subjectively.
You think they you just subjectively think they're similar in some way.
Not that you subjectively think they're similar, just that like you're kind of like when you come into consciousness, you just already assume that other people are like exist and they're real.
You know, I have an interesting question, Liam. Let's say
Mhm.
I have a computer that's like 1,000 times stronger than I am, and the computer can in itself simulate like 1 million AI beings. No, now, not million. Let's say it can simulate 100 billion AI beings. So now, are you telling me the computer in a democracy should have more votes than I do because it can simulate 1 billion different consciousnesses?
I don't know how it came to the opinion that I don't think human like computers are conscious either. I just think that the
Thank
any
God.
argument
Okay.
about it cannot be an objective argument. It has to be a
I
subjective
agree it cannot
argument.
be objective. That's cool with me. Fine.
Like that's my position. All any possible argument for it would necessarily have to be in the same
Well, I
structure
mean,
as the argument for humans being conscious,
right,
which is
right.
our subjective experience of living with
I
others.
If you're talking about the
accept that argument.
phenomenal consciousness, but I think we can. I think if we're talking about a different type of like, I guess if we're talking about, but I don't know how exactly you. I mean, I guess you have to assume already that people are conscious. It's just like you're saying that there's like in the phenomenal space you already have these assumptions, and then it just
Yeah,
is what it
like
is.
yeah.
But I think
I think that these assumptions primarily come like subjectively and unconsciously, rather than being the sort of formal like rational arguments that we're currently making in favor of computers being conscious or not. Does that make sense?
but
I
you
agree
never
that
experience someone
whenever
else's
you talk about
consciousness.
consciousness, you're doing some amount of subjectivity. There is no way to talk about conscious objectively.
Yeah, like when somebody is talking about how like they think that their cat is conscious or whatever,
But
like they're not
you
like
can
bringing
correlate
up the hard
you
facts.
can correlate the assumption that you make to like if you assume that okay, a human is more conscious than a cat, then
Mhm.
let's just say that that's if you assume that you put that definition on it, then you have to look then you and you also assume that brains are what produce consciousness. then like you say that you have to say that there's like something different about the human brain that causes it to uh produce more consciousness than the cat, for example. It's like an argument you would probably make if you assume those two things, right?
Maybe.
So I guess like if you have to, so like I guess you wouldn't accept the brain part of it. You would just say, but like, but I guess in the same way that you would like do that, you could associate different things with, you could associate different things in the kind of other world, the non phenomenal world with the phenomenal part associated with
The
it.
problem is you'd have to somehow enter like the
You have to assume that
world
you
of
have to phenomenal. You
experiences
have
of
to
another,
okay.
which you have no access to in order to measure it empirically against whatever material measurement you're taking.
So you have some assumption about it, but if you assume something initially, then and that may be wrong, but you could extrapolate that onto other. You could associate it with other things. Like if you take kind of an assumption, but then you translate that into the material world in terms of like associating with it all of these other things.
Sure, but it would just be a continuing forth of the assumption, and it wouldn't. Uh, you would still have to necessarily believe in the assumption first.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, I feel like
like if you
even
assume
saying
that
something like,
like if you assume that say whenever someone says they're conscious, they've
mhm,
they are or something.
mhm.
Then you have to then you suddenly assume that humans that are able to speak or conscious, then you have to look into like what are the correlates. Then you can look at all these correlates to what when they say they're conscious, are they like actually conscious? Or no, sorry, no, no. You look at all these like correlates to whether to when they say that, what are they, what is like happening in their brain, or what are the causes of that?
Wait, just practically speaking, how would we find humans that aren't conscious and then get them to say, I am conscious, and then measure their
No, I
brain
never said
activity?
that.
Like,
No,
what would be.
I'm just saying like
Okay,
you would
but to
Chips.
conduct.
If you put a Elon Musk chip, control the neurons from a chip, make him say they're conscious. That's how you do it.
Okay, but how would you know they're not conscious in the first place, right?
You gotta get a brain dead patient and then send the electrical signals through the chip.
Well, the thing is, we already know the difference in the like. There are going to be large other differences in brain activity between a brain dead person and a live human, right? Like, couldn't we just say those are the differences that constitute like living, right?
I feel like there is a way you could do it, but yeah, I think you could get unconscious people to say they are conscious if you just put it in a chip and then routed the brain signals correctly.
I just don't see why like this conscious stuff is such a like a primary assumption. But
What do you mean?
like how is it any more like primary or not as like or how is it not as arbitrary as other assumptions that people make? Like
Well, can you give an example?
uh like mathematical ones.
You're saying how is the assumption that other human beings are conscious? How is that less or
I
more
guess like not as
arbitrary?
arbitrary as like I guess arbitrary. Okay, well, honestly, yeah, I'm okay.
No, I'm just trying to get this down,
Yeah,
like
I
what
mean,
exactly you
it
mean.
just seems like there are a lot of things that underlying it is arbitrary, but or like it's subjective, but people
Something
state
being subjective is very different from it being arbitrary.
okay,
Like
but
the
I feel like you
experience
could.
of colors are subjective.
I agree that anything to do with consciousness is subjective. I'm willing to completely accept that argument.
I'm just trying to say that there are correlates to what we like. If you assume something, then you could find a correlate to that. Uh, assumption in the non-conscious world, but
Okay, but the assumption is going to do all the heavy lifting in terms of like solving the hard problem, right?
I guess like
Your
maybe if you just assume
correlation
maybe
wouldn't
if you just
matter.
assume that humans like are you know born conscious or something like unless they have then maybe you could like maybe you could find some differences between the humans that claim to be conscious and don't in like their specific neural structure. But
Are there
I guess
humans
you
that
wouldn't.
don't claim to be conscious?
Well, there are humans that are that don't. Well, yeah, there are humans that don't claim to be conscious if they're even if they're like brain dead or something. That's an
Yeah,
example.
but okay, being brain dead is being like dead, right?
For all practical purposes.
Well, I mean, depends
So
on.
we
I mean,
also
you
wouldn't.
could also. I mean, I guess yeah. Say someone's conscious but they're not able to speak. Then like, are they? You know, it's another question. Like, what if they're actually conscious but they're? I mean, what if we assume they're conscious but they're not able to say they're conscious because
Well, I
they
think we
can't
would
speak
still
or something.
assume that that person's conscious, right? Like we'd still assume if we didn't have like Helen Keller couldn't speak for a while, but most people around her assumed that she was conscious, right? And it's because they made this sort of subjective judgment rather than an objective judgment. Actually, they didn't like assume that she's conscious, to be clear. I'm not like that's maybe the wrong word because that's a sort of rationalistic frame. Like they subjectively knew that she was conscious by their interactions with her.
So I mean, but do you think there's anything that you could that a computer could do that would you would subjectively know that it is as well?
Uh,
Like
I would
obviously this
have
current like
to.
computer current computers don't like what would a computer? I mean, you maybe you would say you have to know it when you see it, but
Yeah, well, no, I think I think that's true. It would have to be something subjective, right? Like I think this is also the case for animals.
can you not do
Most people
hypothetical? Can you
who
not do hypothetical subjective scenarios though? Like if you saw a computer that like you know I don't know like did some like very unexpected like human like thing that maybe it would like you might attribute it consciousness or something.
yeah, I'm not sure if hypotheticals work great in this
Yeah.
area. I was about to bring up like a lot of the people who come to believe strongly that animals are conscious, like people are, develop that through like months or years of working directly with animals in their sort of personal lives. And so they gain that sort of same sense that people gain with others, that like subjective sense that the others are conscious.
Huh. Well, I guess it's kind of like a D. I mean, that is the phenomenal argument. Like how you define phenomenal consciousness is like such that you can't describe it functionally. You can't describe it in these other ways. You can't use this other language about it. So, I mean, do I think that that the phenomenal? I mean, that's kind of how you set up the definition of it. So, I mean, it's hard to. It's like
Well, I mean,
it's a lot of
we all
saying what
know
it's a
what.
lot of saying what you that you know something that you can't talk about.
Yeah, I mean, but like we all do know this, right? Like we all we all experience this phenomenal consciousness.
Or so we assume.
Well, that we're not assuming. Like you are experiencing a phenomenal consciousness, right?
I hope so.
I mean, depend. I mean, if that's how. I mean, it depends on how you're defining it. But I mean, you guess you can't. I mean, something you can't talk about, right? It's hard to
It's
talk
very
about.
difficult. It's very difficult to describe, but I think it's a obviously universal experience, right?
I mean, it's not obvious because you don't. I mean, I feel like you. I feel like you might be saying this because of like Heidegger, but and Heidegger said that. But I don't know if like
Do you like
I don't know how. I
have
mean,
you ever
I think
like stopped and thought like, oh, I wonder if this particular person's conscious? Not like the problem of solipsism in general. Like, I wonder how we can know that anyone's conscious. I'm like, have you ever like seen somebody and then like after like a few minutes of like talking to
I
them,
mean,
you're
like
like,
when I
I
look
wonder
at
if
someone,
that guy's
like some guy, like
conscious.
I look at some like I mean, if you look at some guy like on like drugs or something, and then maybe I don't think they're conscious.
Hmm. That's actually a compelling point, I guess. Well, others is typically meant to apply to. That's still a subjective point. I guess it would be the
I mean,
position,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that.
Like others is typically confined to like sort of working healthy people, and then
I guess it's. I
animals
mean, it
are
is like
others to
it
a
only
lesser
exists
extent.
in our associations with it, right? Like
Mhm.
we associate ourselves being asleep with like not being conscious. That's how we associate other people who, have similar. We recognize that they have similar bodies to us or whatever, and then they look like they're asleep, so they might not be conscious.
That's true. I think
But
that that's a fair case,
I mean,
and that's still a
but it's
subjective
still
argument for
association.
them.
It's still associations with it.
Yeah, I
With
think
what we with
subjectivity is
what we.
fine in this.
But I feel like it's also associations, which is not necessarily a subject. I mean, it's associations
Mm,
with our own experience of it, but if it's associated
there's
with,
this like a Taoist story about this. If you can, it's called the happiness of fish. Hold on, it's really short. I'm
you
just
already
gonna read
told
it
me
out.
this one, and when we're in, you know,
Oh, really?
that like
So yeah, I mean, you'd have to know if the fish are happy, then that, right?
it was like we said that it was in the that restaurant, like what was it called, the noodle restaurant, like the ramen restaurant. It's like
Yeah.
we were talking about that was with Ursu, but I mean it was, yeah, I mean this it's obviously a tough topic, but I think because you can't, it's like you can't get out of the system when you're within the system, you know, when you are the system,
Hmm.
like, but you can't get step into like the actual being of the being of the thing without actually being it. But
Yeah.
like you can't. I mean, if that makes, I don't know if I'm making sense, but it has to. I mean, like yeah. So, I mean, let me read this up. What is it? Happiness
The
of fish.
joy of fish. Oh, yeah, or the happiness of fish.
Uh, Zhuangzi. Oh yeah, I mean,
Oh, the debate on the joy of fish. It's in the table of contents.
all right. What this will be our last. This will be the last topic of of the discussion. It's
Whether
been
fish
three
are
hours.
happy or not.
It's been 3 hours, so I feel like we gotta at least like end on this. Okay.
All right.
Do you agree to Darsh or no?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Are you looking?
We'll do happiness of fish.
So
So, yeah, Zhuangzi and Huichi
this
were
might be
enjoying
we'll bring
themselves.
this back by like okay saying maybe the fish are like how super intelligence will look at us
AI.
later. We'll look at us later. No,
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 well, is it wouldn't it be how we look at superintelligence, wondering if it's like conscious or whatever?
but it could also be
Oh
similarly
yeah.
wondering whether I don't know
Sure.
whether it could
So,
also be looking down on us, looking at in its advanced consciousness, thinking
oh, and it's wondering if we're conscious in the way that it is.
you're right.
That's an
So
interesting take.
you know
So yeah, Zhuangzi and Huiji were enjoying themselves on a bridge over the river Hao. Zhuangzi said, "The minnows are darting about free and easy. This is how fish are happy." Huiji replied, "You are not a fish. How do you know that the fish are happy?" Zhuangzi said, "You are not I. How do you know that I do not know that the fish are happy?" Huichi said, "I'm not you, to be sure, so of course I don't know about you, but you are obviously not a fish, so the case is complete that you don't know that the fish are happy." Zhuangzi says, "Let's go back to the beginning of this. You said, 'How do you know that the fish are happy?' But in asking me this, you already knew that I know it. I know it right here, above the how."
Uh, I'm confused as fuck.
Uh, the joke here is, how do you know, is similar to like if you asked somebody like when did you know that you were gay?
Huh?
Like when he asks him, how do you know that the fish are happy? He's assuming the guy does in fact know that the fish are happy. It's a loaded question accidentally.
That made zero sense,
Oh, he
my
says, "How
man.
do you know?" He says, "How do you know?" Because you're assuming that someone already knows it. But don't worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, just don't worry about what Liam is talking about. The gays, the gay.
I don't know. That's a pretty common example, right? Don't people do that bit a lot?
I
No,
Or
think
like,
people do that bit often,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I know.
yeah.
I often. I mean, I do say that. I said that to some guy in German one time. I was like, he's like, it's like, he speaks all his German. I don't know German, so I just looked up Google Translate. I'm like, why are you gay?
Or like, are you gonna tell your mom that you're gay? Is
I
like
mean,
another
it's like
classic
the
example.
classic, like, the YouTube video, like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
why
yeah.
are you gay?
So that's the
Who
move
says
that
I
Zhuangzi is
who
pulling it
says I'm
on
gay?
him at the end.
You are gay.
Oh my god.
So yeah, you said, how do you know that the fish are happy? But in asking me this, you already knew that I know it.
The precise
So true.
point he
So
intends to
he
make in the
shouldn't have asked the
debate is not
question.
entirely clear.
He shouldn't have asked the question though. He should have just said, "You are not a fish. You do not know that the fish are happy."
True.
They wouldn't have gotten this whole weird argument if they. It's
If they
meaning to, like,
phrased it differently.
what? Yeah, I mean,
If you phrased it differently.
I think so, right? It's not like it's more like a linguistic argument than like a than about the actual whether he's a fish or not.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a linguistic argument because Zhuangzi is like making an epistemological claim that he can know whether fish are happy by looking at them, right?
Yeah, but then he moves into a linguistic argument later, right?
Uh,
By claiming that he already asked that when he asked him that.
oh yeah, I guess yeah, that is a linguistic argument. I feel like that's a joke though. He didn't mean that as a real argument.
So they're
I
just
don't think I understood this
it's just a
argument.
discussion of whether it's just like a joke that the last part, and then but it's
Well,
actually
I
trying
think
to
the
touch
joke's
on the.
also like real.
The
Like I
joke's
think the
real.
nature of the joke is irrelevant to the overall effect of the
Okay.
work. Uh, I don't think it's like an irrelevant joke to make, but I do think like it's an intentional blunting, or it doesn't follow logically from the rest of the debate, if that makes sense. Like it's an intentional rejection of the framing.
So basically, he's trying to say that the knowledge of fish's happiness is subjective.
Maybe he's trying to say that. I don't know. There's a lot of interpretations. I like that interpretation though. That he just knows because he like feels like the fish are happy, and that's like good
Precise
enough.
point that Zhang Zhao intends to make in this debate is not entirely clear. Thanks, Wikipedia.
Knowing is knowing a thing is simply a state of mind. Yeah. So the idea is that knowing itself is subjective in this case, or that there wouldn't be an objective form of knowing anyway. I guess that is true. Like necessarily knowing something is a subjective experience, right?
God damn it.
I mean, hey,
I hate subjectivity.
the I mean, yeah, it's I mean, knowing of a knowing is like a. I mean, people will claim it's like justified true belief, and then they claim a lot of chains of thought, chains of reasoning, and chains of I mean stuff that you could like point to. But I mean, does that actually? Hopefully, it points to something real at the end. That's what knowing
Mhm.
should do: is point to something real rather than just something subjective.
Well, maybe it's subjective and real. The subjective experience is very real.
All experience is subjective, right? How can it not be real?
Yeah.
Well, if you're casting knowing as being a subject, as I never, you don't have to cast knowing as being subjective though. That's what the argument of the thing is, but that's the argument of
Well,
this
wouldn't
passage is.
I see?
I don't cast everything as being subjective though. It's more like points. I mean, like, is reality fundamentally subjective? You know, I don't know. I don't think so.
From your perspective, it's only can only get to objective by like averaging multiple different people's experience, or like the
Well,
experience is reproducible.
and in that case, you'd have to go through subjectivity first. Like subjectivity is
Yeah,
still the medium by which you access any kind of reality.
agreed. It is kind of insane, but mathematical truths don't seem to follow the same rules, though.
Uh, well, I think as I talked about earlier, I think like mathematical truths aren't necessarily like material truths. Like if I think like something can be like mathematically true in the same way that something can be true of like a character in a novel. It's just because like that's how you set it up or defined it. Like I think logical systems are very different from material existence.
So, but logical systems do have objective truth then,
Sure.
because you
But they
assume before you even get to the thing, you have to have some axiom you assume, and then you can get to objective truth.
well even here we can say that like logical systems to some extent can exist objectively, but we still have to access them subjectively. Like maybe that's a little out there, but when you're doing
I don't know,
that,
man.
you're
I don't think
still
there's anything subjective about 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. There is no
well,
subjectivity.
who's doing the 1 plus 1 equals 2, right?
Doesn't matter, right? You always get the same result.
But somebody has to do it. Like a human being or a guy, I guess a computer in this case, has to do it. And even in the case that a computer would do it,
And you're still
some
interpreting it.
person,
You're interpreting it as that from the computer.
yeah,
You're saying there's some
it would
I don't
still
know,
representation.
man.
be
I mean,
I feel
subjective
like
first.
there is something called objectivity that exists. It just has to like be mediated through subjective
like
experience.
a Platonic
Sure.
ideal, I guess you're saying.
But even something like a mathematical truth would have to go through a subjective experience first.
To communicate it, yeah.
I mean, a mathematical. I mean, the way that these symbolic things are kind of represented is I guess it has to go through. It has to be represented by something, and there has to be recognized as a representation for that type of truth. Like,
Mhm.
if the computer, like, if you don't can't read, I can't read this Chinese, but I assume that it like corresponds. I mean, to this, or I don't know if it's Chinese or not. Might be.
I think it's Chinese. I guess yeah, we don't know if it's Chinese or not. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I mean, you probably do. Oh no, it says that right
Knowing
there.
is
It says that.
subjective.
It says that right there. Literary Chinese text, but you
I
know,
see. Well, we still don't know if
we
it's.
don't.
God
I
damn
mean,
it.
if you were Chinese, would you know it?
Maybe.
Would you know that that is?
All
I mean,
knowing is
do we
subjective,
know
so
that this
you
is
can say you
English?
know it.
Do we know this
Well,
is English?
sometimes people like understand their own
But I'm
language.
saying
Like
like
there
you have
was
to
this.
interpret. You have to interpret like you know, even the mathematical truth. You represent it somehow. You could also like miss. It's not by virtue of the material world that the thing is mathematically true, right? Like that it's represented mathematically is like not by virtue of the material world. Like the material world is not. I mean, I guess that's hard to. I mean, I guess you observe the
I don't know.
material world, but I mean, that's why I like this model of like the free energy stuff, but like just how it. I mean, it is kind of. It says that there's like this. There is this world that is generating the. There's this function that's generating the world, but you don't have access to it. You only have access to your
Mhm.
observations of it. Of what you only have access to your observations, observations, and then those like a model that
Oh, I see. So for that model to work, necessarily a sort of mathematical truth would have to exist prior to a material truth. Yeah, I guess from that point of view, if you do think like the thing undergirding the material world is something mathematical, then you would have to believe that like humans can't put forward new mathematical concepts.
Well, I guess it's like the way that I mean, it's the way that it generalizes onto the. It's like a generalization, but like the problem is intractable because it's like a Bayesian model, so it's like
Hmm.
approximations. All it like the actual instantiation of it is approximation, but it just refers to a more general concept of like when we talk about sensation versus a thought, that's like an approximation, or it's I don't know. It's hard to say, but I mean, I'll just reference the model that I was talking about quickly, but I was think sorry, I think I referenced it before, but it's talking about how there's like a stochastic model of of the environmental dynamics that that evolves over time. That is kind of you can't. It only evolves related to the actions of the agent, and then like that type of thing. I mean, I don't know why it says why they're expected to evolve by this over time t, because maybe in reality it just evolves over time t, and we have these sensory model and all these things to like adapt to it, but it's just evolving, and it doesn't. And we have these models that are perceived as like that we think are the controlling it or whatever, but it's only. I mean, we have the actions, but we just perceive them as being uh free to free to do, but we are it's actually. I mean, yeah, these models are like the representations of our senses, action, and internal model. So hard to describe what exactly that is, but like phenomenally. But
Mhm.
I think that that's like a way that you can represent even humans and like as just in a certain model, I guess. But it's still a philosophical point. But it's not like
I see.
I guess what is knowledge in that model? I mean, knowledge is like in my opinion, from this model is like what you get when you optimize it. So it's like it's a I guess in this sense it is also it's not a and it's a constant optimization in kind of in the response to this environmental dynamic. So it is a process rather than a kind of a like a clear cut. This is a statement that is knowledge, but it's more like a act or more like a knowing, I guess. Back to this point, so that's what I think it is. I don't know, but I mean, I guess that's what I think. Like, I'm gonna try to develop this like theory of knowledge stuff for my epistemology class. It's like on this type of
I
stuff.
see. Yeah, that's cool.
I already wrote some stuff about it
Alright.
before, but yeah, I mean, all right, it's about 3 hours. It's about 3 hours, so we probably should.
Yeah, 3 hour discussion. We hit all the topics. We talked about fish.
Yeah, we talked about. I mean, yeah, I think we just think about the superintelligence. Superintelligence is like
Yeah.
it's like Zhang Zhui and who is he? They're gonna be like the humans are so you know productive and normal. Look at this how they're. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna say, but you can't know what they're gonna say. They're just like they're gonna break out of it. Like hopefully they won't break out of it, but they might break out of it like Zhuang Zhi broke out of the logic.
Broke out of the logical argument. Yeah. Maybe he'll pull that move on a unsuspecting AI researcher slash tenant guard.
The super intelligence Zhuang Zhi.
Yeah.
Oh dang. Wait. Yeah, that might be. What if? Yeah, what are you gonna do when they do that to you? Who knows? You can't even know about that one. I mean, you have to try it. You have to try, like Bostrom.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, is it Arch even still here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good talk, guys. Hope to see you in a couple weeks when we're discussing the chapters. I'll just go through a quick preview. Multipolar scenarios, acquiring values, choosing the criteria for choosing, the strategic picture, and crunch time. Seems interesting to me. Looking forward to it. And